What is up, everybody? Chris and Eric back with another edition of Chris Akin Presents. Eric, my friend, how you doing, my man?
Doing great. Doing great. Survived Mother's Day.
Yes. How about
Now,
that?
you haven't celebrated Mother's Day yet, apparently.
I have not yet. I celebrated Mother's Day by sending my mom a 3-word text. Happy Mother's Day.
But I guess that's better than like HMD, like an acronym.
Yeah. No, I'm not that big of a douche, but no, I am celebrating Mother's Day next Sunday because my mom and my brother were out in North Carolina with my niece who graduated from wherever in North Carolina with her master's degree. So she's like 23 years old and already going to be more successful than any of us.
Right.
But they had, what a weird weekend they had on Mother's Day weekend. They had graduation. So she was out there, so she wasn't here. So, you know, I get to be the black sheep son that gets to celebrate it late, but that's okay.
Yeah, there was a similar situation going on with my family. I have 2 nieces that are also up in college, and my sister, who's their mother, went up to see went up to see them. So that messed up the whole family dynamic, leaving my mom, who's 75 now, kind of lonely and upset. So I'm glad I actually had, called her and said, "Hey, Mom, you want to do Mother's Day over at my place at the Beach Mansion West?"
Nice.
And she said, yeah, she was excited about it. So we, Susan and I, hosted a Mother's Day, just a small thing with my stepdad and my mom, and I cooked. What I did, I made some steaks and some rosemary potatoes, some fried zucchini.
No bulgogi, huh?
No bulgogi. Did a Greek salad that my mom liked a lot.
Nice.
She's
very cool.
Half Greek, so.
Oh, that's cool, dude.
If she wanted seconds, that's a compliment to me. She's like, "More Greek salad, please."
Nice.
So I whipped that up. Had some dessert too.
I think the big news of this week, me and you are going to actually see each other face to face instead of screen to screen.
Yeah. This is in Willowboro. Did I say that
Willoughby.
Right? Willoughby.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be here. Of course, I won't be at the show because I'll be doing Mother's Day, but I will make a point to, since I don't sleep anyway on Sundays, since I do the CMS and then right after I do the processing, right after I'm done processing the show, I'll be running out to Willoughby to go have lunch with you, and we'll hang out for a while. And
yeah, man, do it.
Should be fun.
Hell yeah. We'll have to video some of that too.
Yeah, we'll video some of that. I don't know. Will we have any drinks, or is that taboo for you pre-show?
It depends. I don't typically drink anymore before a show. I usually wait till after.
Maybe 1 or 2. I mean, it's not often you get to see
that's
me.
Right. That's right. It's a special occasion.
That's right. And plus, I gotta drive home anyway, and then back to my mom, so I can't be all fucked up.
Right. You can't have more than 2 drinks an hour or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, I've done that too before, man. That's the worst. When I first came back, the first time I came back from Korea, when I was stationed in Korea in the military, first time I came, and it's a long flight. Let me tell you, it's a very long flight. So I was on Korean Air. I think Korean Air was like 9 hours from Kimpo Airport to LAX. And then from LAX, it's another, I think, 4 to 6 hours back to, or I think it was like 4 hours to Detroit, and then an hour to Cleveland, right? Well, the entire time on the Korean Air flight, now remember, I'm 18 years old at this point, so I'm not even legal to drink in the United States.
Right.
I was in Korea, though, and on the Korean Air flight, free beer. Ooh. It was free OB beers, which OB was their version of Miller Lite or Budweiser, just cheap piss beer in Korea. Well, I must have drank, in 9 hours, I must have drank a case. I just kept pounding beers, man. I was just knocking down drink, and then I'm drinking a few mixed drinks. I'm buying a couple of mixed drinks as well.
Now, who else is on the plane? Is this
It was me and my girlfriend at the time, Brenda.
okay?
We were just on the plane getting annihilated. Like, she passed out. She literally passed out next to me because we were partying. We were absolutely partying on the plane. And
I get more drunk up on a plane if I've ever drank. It's like the pressure, the thinner air. I don't know. It's like
it's that. It's, back then there was no movie or nothing on the plane. We didn't have an iPod or something to watch. It was dead time. So it was, you could read a book or you could drink. And that's what we did, was we sat there and just drank and told stories and talked to each other until she passed the fuck out. So I get off the plane, I mean, annihilated. But I faked it good enough for LA. I had to run across LA. It was one of the rare times that the booking was good and I didn't have like a 4-hour layover or whatever.
right.
I literally had to run to the other end of LAX, get on a plane that was boarding when I landed. So it was like literally run across drunk, get on the plane at LAX. They don't check me to see if I'm hammered because they were holding the plane for me.
Right.
So I get straight onto the plane. I order a drink. They bring it to me because I was in uniform. They didn't check to see if I was 18 or whatever. They just handed me a drink. Okay, well, then I'll have another. And then I'll have another. And then I'll have another. By the time I got to Detroit, I was barely able to stand. But they still let me get on the plane. It was one of those little quick flights from Detroit to Cleveland. It literally goes up, it comes down. There's no length of flight. It's probably 25 minutes, 30 minutes. I get off in Cleveland. My mom's there. She's excited to see me. Hasn't seen me in 7 months. First time her baby's ever been away. Hey, what's up? Mom. Just annihilated drunk. And she was just like, ugh, this has to happen, right? She was so disappointed in me. And then to make it even worse, then she was even more disappointed in me on that whole visit. I don't think I ever was sober. Like, never. Every night it was, it was running around with my friends that were all first-year college students. And I was like, okay, you guys think you can drink, but let me show you what I learned while I was away. So it was just a drink fest. At one point, my dad cornered me in the kitchen. I was getting a beer, and he's like, "Are you going to drink everything in the house?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I did," because the fridge was empty.
And you weren't able to replace it because you weren't even 21.
I couldn't even go buy it. I just drank it out of his fridge, and I just threw money on the table, which for parents, that's like the ultimate disrespect.
Right, to pay for anything.
Well, it's just disrespectful to say, here, are you gonna replace that? Here's $20. What do you fucking want from me? That's really how I was too. Just a disrespectful asshole.
Wow. How old were you again? You were 18?
18. Yeah, I turned 19 like 4 months later. I was 18 and 8 months maybe.
And you got out of, how long did you stay home before you moved out and got your own place?
Oh, I was only back for a visit. I was just back for my 30 days that you get every year from the military. So I took my month home and was coming home so my mom and dad could meet the new girl, because I was gonna marry Brenda, and that didn't happen. That's
you sobered up.
Well, no, her legs stayed open for everybody else, and it just turned into a problem.
Oh no!
But yeah, you can read that story in my book, in the and other things I should not say, because I did tell that story in the book. But yeah, it's it wasn't meant to be, thankfully, because from what I hear, she's had 4 other husbands since, and then my cheating session that she cheated on me too. So it's like, ooh.
Was she also 18 or 19?
No, she was like 23 maybe. She was older. I was dating an older chick. Oh. But dude, the worst thing, she lives in Detroit, still is in Detroit. And I went home, and then we were supposed to get together after a week. Like, she was going to see her mom and dad and whatever. I was going to see my mom and dad and whatever. And then I was going to go see her. I was going to go pick her up and bring her back, And so she called me like 2 days in. Is like, can you come and get me? And I was like, yeah, what's up? She's like, just come and get me. This isn't going well here. I was like, okay, no problem. So I borrow my mom's car because I didn't even have a car. I borrow my mom's car. I drive up to Detroit. I get to the house, knock on the door. Big giant dude answers the door. 6'4", Marine haircut. He's like, yeah. I'm like, is Brenda here? And he's like, yeah, come on in. And I come in, and the guy's like, I don't remember his name. I'll just say Robert. He's like, yeah, hey man, I'm Robert. I'm Brenda's husband. I was like, husband? I was like, what? And now I'm freaking the fuck out because I'm in this house. Nobody really knows where I am.
Right.
And here's this 6'4" monster in the house with me. And I'm like, this guy's going to fucking beat my ass or shoot me.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, and he saw that I was like clenching fists and getting ready to fight my way out. And he's like, dude, relax. He's like, we're getting divorced. Just relax. Right. And I was like, oh, okay. And then literally, as we drove away, I was so mad, as you can imagine. Because I don't even know she's married, and I'm having her come to meet my parents. She's still married, and it just and banging me, and it was like, what the hell,
Hey, Mom, this is Brenda and her husband, Robert.
Exactly. That's exactly. I was like, what are you doing? You didn't tell me this. You didn't think you needed to tell me. Well, I was going to on the plane, but we got to talking, and then it just didn't come up. I was like, oh Jesus, okay, whatever. It was.
I've seen stuff like that on X Hamster.
Yeah, exactly.
Husband and wife and the boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that whole. It's a 3-way cuckold section.
Yeah.
The husband films.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched those too. Too funny, man.
So what did you tell your parents? You're like, oh, cancel, abort.
No, because I was dumb. I was 18. Canceled nothing. No, dude, we had a great time. I will say. I will absolutely say she came to the house. She stayed. My mom loved her. My dad loved her. We had
did he love on her?
He might have fucked her. I don't know. Who knows? But, no, I mean, we had this great time. We went to the amusement park that's here, the big amusement park. We spent a day there. We went and hung out with all my friends. We did all this cool stuff. And then, so we spent the time, and then we were supposed to go back. So what we did was we went back, and we took military flights, which were called MAC flights back in the day. Right. Military assisted carrier or something. I don't remember exactly what MAC meant. But we got to Kansas City, and then when we got to Kansas City, the way the MAC flights worked was that they just kind of lined you up by the amount of leave that you had left, and they would take people on as many as they could. It was kind of like a standby thing. And she got on the plane, but I didn't get on the plane. So I had to wait 12 hours until the next flight or whatever it was. So she flies back. I wait the 12 hours. I, hang out, do nothing in the airport or in on the base, So 12 hours later, I take the MAC flight back. I fly back. I get there. I get back on a Saturday night, probably like 8:00. I'm like, let me get out of my uniform, and I'm gonna get my clothes, and I'm gonna go and find her. I'm gonna go find her, and then we're gonna go to the Ville, and we're gonna party, right?
Right.
I change clothes. I go up to her room, knock on the door. There's somebody in there, but no answer. Open the door because I had a key. Here she is banging another guy. 12 hours. It wasn't even like it was like a week later or something. This was literally 12 hours. I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. This can't be happening.
Nice.
But needless to say, that led to the breakup, and that was that. So, you know, it just did not.
So this
go
is
well.
after the husband part?
Yeah. This was literally, we were together for like 2-3 weeks or whatever, and then we were flying back to Korea to do our time in Korea.
Yeah.
And then it was 12 hours difference. If I'd have flown back with her, it wouldn't have been a problem. But
I think
it just didn't work out.
that's I think common sometimes when women first get divorced or separated, they go nuts for a bit.
Yeah, they do. They definitely they lose it a little bit, and this one definitely did. And like I said, she's been married 4 different times, plus the engaged to me, and 4 different marriages. It's like, oof, I dodged a major bullet, I think, on that one. But yeah, I don't know, just not my thing. But that is that. That's a long time ago, man. But
Right.
But anyway, dude, we have fantastic guests tonight on the show. I am so pumped. We have Sammy Hagar's son, Andrew Hagar, is going to be joining us in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
He has a few things working. He's got a new song called Systematic Minds that he's going to be doing. He also is going to be on a show on Paramount Plus that deals specifically with sons and daughters of very famous people. It's like he's on it. The Notorious B.I.G.'s kid is on it. There's like 7 or 8 different people that are on it, and talking a lot about living in the shadow of that big legacy. So we'll talk to him about that. And this guy has a fantastic life, man. He's, as I was telling you before we started, he trained and what's his name? Fabrizio Verdum, the UFC fighter. He trained him, and Verdum won the UFC.
That name is awesome.
Oh, Fabrizio Verdum. Yeah.
He'll bring the Verdum.
It does. It is a great name, but he trained him and he became UFC heavyweight champion. So clearly Andrew knows how to fight. Clearly he knows something about jujitsu, or is that what I think he does jujitsu.
Let's ask him about Bruce Lee. What do you think of Bruce Lee? I've been seeing a lot of stuff that Bruce Lee was just an actor and a lot of his shit was bullshit.
He might have been. Oh, let's ask him.
Specifically, the 1-inch punch.
Right.
Okay. Because he would like go up to the guy and he would kind of have his finger there and then he'd go,
sure. Right.
But he was really just pushing the person. You know what I mean? He was, and the person would just fall backwards and it would be all dramatic, but it was actually bullshit.
Exactly. Well, we can definitely ask Andrew about that. And then I am so excited that we are going to have author and more importantly, Branch Davidian survivor David Thibodeau on the show.
A more serious CHRIS Akin Presents tonight. In fact, I was like, what do I even do for a backdrop tonight? I'm like, geez, do I have like tanks mowing down a village? Or
I'm glad you didn't go that route.
Right? That can like trigger the poor guy. And so I was like, all right, well, I did just spend last night with my mom.
Yeah.
So I thought of
with
Mama's Place, which was Vicki Lawrence, of course, from
sure,
Carol Burnett. You know what's funny? Like I had I don't know if I had a weird attraction to her, but as a little kid, like all the chicks on this show, I was okay
Vicki Lawrence.
Well, maybe, but here's the thing: it's like almost like I knew that underneath there she was hiding a younger.
Okay, yeah, you knew she was like 30, playing 70 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, with the big moo-moo. And so I love that show. Mama's Family was a great
It was all right. I haven't watched it in like 5 years. But
I have to imagine it aged horribly because it's not even on like Pluto TV or anything. It's just nowhere. You know.
I can't watch anything that's got the canned laughter in it
Yeah, I know,
anymore
it's
for some
awful.
reason. I
And
can't
you
do
hear
it.
the same one guy laughing in the laugh track. Like
Ugh.
MASH. MASH was the worst. They used that guy, and you would just hear that same guy at every laugh. It was like, stop it.
Hoo guy here in the front, stand here by
Yeah,
the microphone.
exactly.
The studio audience.
Exactly.
Have you ever been in a studio audience before
Local
for a
stuff,
TV show?
not a big one like you probably have. I mean,
I have once. It wasn't through my music ties or anything. This was when I was a teenager. I went and saw Married with Children
okay.
get
That'd be
filmed.
fun.
It was pretty awesome. The whole thing was an adventure.
Right.
Where I was telemarketing at the time, and my good friend and I worked with this lady who used to work on the show.
Okay.
And she was like, yeah, if anybody wants tickets. And she had given some other people passes to go at some point during the season of Married with Children being on. And at the time, Christina Applegate was like one of the hottest chicks in TV, right?
She was the
right?
Yeah.
So we were like, oh man, we gotta see this show. And it was almost like a comedy movie in itself, like the adventure of going to meet Christina Applegate.
Sure.
And my roommate, who he kind of looked like Dave Mustaine.
Okay.
And I kind of looked like Kirk Hammett a little bit back then. I had like long curly hair, and we had nicknames for each other. He called me Kirk Slamit, and I called him Dave Muffstain.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyways, he was certain that when we went up that Christina Applegate was going to fall in love with him.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that'll happen.
Want to date him. And around that time, she was like dating Sebastian Bach and a couple people. But anyways, we took my Cadillac up there to Burbank or wherever they were filming the show. And I had this crazy, like the 1977 Cadillac Eldorado Baritz as seen in the movie Goodfellas.
Yeah.
That used to belong to my grandfather, who ran a diner in Jersey in the 70s, and he gave it to me. And I really didn't appreciate it at the time. It was kind of a god-awful monstrosity back then. It was kind of embarrassing to have. But and it really was an eyesore to police and whatnot.
Sure.
They, especially looking all heavy metal, back then.
Right.
But we decided to head up. Now, when you're on the 5 North, you get to this border check where you have to stop. It's like an immigration, checkpoint. And as we got up to it, the guy looked at us, and we were all kind of high as hell. And we ended up, he said, go ahead. Right. But we ended up laughing or something, and he changed his mind.
Okay.
And he like slams the car, and he's like, stop, Rick. And we were like, did he say stop? And I kept going for a little bit, but then I noticed they had like closed everything, and there was these flashing lights on the overpass, and I was like, oh shit. And then I had to like drive backwards, and I did the worst job of trying to drive this boat backwards to the side. It just looked terrible. And when we got out, I remember they did find some stuff. They found a little bit of weed and whatnot, but they basically, and some alcohol. We had been drinking an open container. We had weed.
How old were you?
Oh God. I think I was 18.
Okay. So you were underage there too.
Yeah. So they basically, if I recall, they just made us throw it away.
Right. Okay. That's
but
pretty good.
I was so ballsy that I remember I actually like acted like I was throwing it away, and then I picked it up and stuck it back up my sleeve like Houdini.
Jesus.
David Blaine. I was like, poo.
Right.
Presto, it's back in my jacket. And I don't know. So onward. They ended up letting us go. That was the good news.
That's cool. Yeah.
They did freak out for a second because they found these rocks in a bag.
Right.
It's like crack rocks. But what it was in Southern California, the gardeners throw their business cards in people's driveways, and to weigh it down, they use these rocks, and they throw the rocks with their business card in people's driveways. And one of those bags of rocks happened to be in the back of my car for some reason. So they kind of freaked out for a second. But anyways, they ended up letting us go. That was one of the times that I've been let go, which was great, because we almost didn't get to go see Married with Children get filmed. Right. So
was it fun being actually at the shoot?
Okay, so yeah, we get up there, and it was interesting, how they do it. They basically have a kind of a comedian-ish kind of dude that gets the crowd kind of loosened up a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's making jokes, and he actually came up and made fun of me on there. He's like, yeah, we have a a star here tonight. You guys might not be aware, but you might recognize him from America's Most Wanted. And
Right.
I was like, dick. But anyways, then the show gets filmed, and they kind of bring out the cast. Al Bundy, Bud Bundy, and Peg, and Christina Applegate. They all kind of say hi. The neighbor, I guess, the neighbor chick, Marcy,
yeah,
and her husband,
Steve.
Right.
I'm a total fan of that show. I love it.
We loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I did get a cool bumper sticker from it that said, "Hell yeah, I watch Married with Children." I would keep that on the back of the Cadillac.
Nice.
So just, yeah. Anyways,
That's fun.
but yeah, so we watched the episode, and they kind of film it just like you see it.
Do they do stop takes and everything? Like,
they do stop takes, yeah. And if one of them kind of messes up, which Marcy was the only one I recall having a mess up where she was like, fuck, and then she had to like do it again or whatever her scene was. Everybody else kind of nailed their parts really quick, so they could just get the hell out of there.
Right. So how long? I mean, the show is what, 25 minutes or whatever. How long does it take to shoot? An hour?
That's a good question. I would say, yeah. I think they knocked that thing out in like an hour or so.
Okay. Yeah.
I would imagine they might have practiced this during the week,
And they usually do what, a table read or something like before anyway,
right.
don't they? They do a walkthrough or a table walkthrough.
There wasn't much, set changes. When you watch that show, between the commercial breaks, they're usually in one scene at a time, and I think they only had to set up like 3 shots for this particular episode.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about it, Married with Children, 99% of it is shot in the one room. The house is one room, and then maybe they might have like a second set for like the shoe store or something. Yep. That's about it. That's about all they had.
But at the end, you got to like go up, and they kind of stood there while everybody gets to do almost like a meet and greet at the end, and walk up and say hey to each one of them. And I went up, and then Christina Applegate's there, and I got to shake her hand for a second, and then Dave Mustaine went up to go meet her, and she turned around and walked away. Which was like a total burn. He was a good looking dude, but I mean, for some reason, she just, I don't know, decided that she was done with the meeting.
She probably took one look at him and got that vibe that he was going to hit on her.
Yeah, he did. He was kind of one of those dudes that kind of looked very hungry or whatever.
Opening the shirt as she's walking closer. Hey, baby.
Yeah. Well, we were both young. Again, I was 18. He was probably 20.
Yeah, and she was dating rock stars. The last thing she's going to do is date some dude in the audience.
Right. That she would have recognized anybody famous back then anyway, and she knew we weren't.
Right.
She's like, these are some scuffed up Metallica, Megadeth guys here.
Right.
Kirk Slammet and Dave Mustaine here. No thanks.
Yeah, these are the dorks that can't afford the tickets to Friends.
Right. I don't know if Friends. No, Friends wasn't even a show yet. That was like
I'm trying to think what
90s
was
show.
out at that point. What, Alf or something?
Mama's Place.
Yeah, that's right. Mama's Family.
Mama's Family. Yeah, I kind of screwed that up because I looked up Mama's Place, and then it had the black dude playing the mom, the grandma or whatever.
Oh, that's Big Mama's.
Big Mama's Place. Right.
That's Big Mama's Place, I think.
Which is similar.
Yeah, that's with what's his name? The dude that's always in the Bad Boys movies with with Will Smith. I can't even think of his name. That guy. Somebody will say in the chat room. But I can't think of his name. Damn it. But well, that's that's interesting to say the least, dude. That's the only time I've ever done any of that stuff TV wise was just local stuff here. They had a show here, and it might have been nationwide, but they filmed here called Romper Room.
Oh, I used to watch Romper Room.
And I was in the audience once for Romper Room when I was about 5. Thank you, Lisa. Martin Lawrence.
Martin Lawrence, right?
Yeah. And then they had another show here called the Big Chuck and Little John Show, and it was kind of like an afternoon show where they would just play movies, but they would do little skits. Like in between the blocks of movies on the movie channel or the whatever TV channel. The
local channel would cut in and have their little deal going.
Yeah, they would have their little 3-minute skits, and Big Chuck and Little John, they were huge here. They were here in this town. Big Chuck and Little John was a humongous deal. And I actually appeared on that show. I actually not only sat in the audience, but they pulled me out for some skit, and then I didn't win whatever prize, and then I cried like a baby. I was like 13 too. How embarrassing.
I thought you were going to say like 7 or something.
No, I was like 13 years old. They brought me and 2 other kids up to do some stupid trivia thing, and I lost on TV, and I just felt like, you know, all my friends are going to make fun of me. Mom, you know. Crying like a baby.
I'm more interested with what happened with Romper Room.
You know, I just sat there and watched it, and you know, I mean, we just sat there and watched it. She did her little puppet show and did the little, you know, whatever. I don't even remember what they do on Romper Room, but
yeah, it's been a minute, right? I think I was like 4 when I watched that.
Yeah, all I remember about Romper Room was they all had us wearing name tags, and like, remember at the end of Romper Room, she would hold up the mirror and she'd be like, I see Billy and I see Mary and I see John.
And if they said your name, you were like, you'd freak out. Like,
yeah. Well, I figured out how they did it, because she would hold it like to the side of her face, but the way the camera was angled looked like it was in front of her. And she was looking at the names on the name tags that were 6 feet in front of her, because she called every one of us that was in the first 2 rows.
Oh, I see. Well, so at home, for those of us watching it at home, Romper Room, if they, it seemed like she was talking to us in the studio audience. So,
oh yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, I watched Romper Room for years, and every time she would say Chris, which, gee, imagine that she saw Chris. You know, that was really rare, right? That was like every other show, and every time I was like, see, Mom, she sees me. I'm gonna keep watching. Do
you ever get WPIX out there?
What is that?
Okay, that was like in New Jersey and New York. And I remember as a kid, they would do cutaways where they would have this video game sequence where it was almost like a Space Invaders kind of thing. And you would call in as a kid. And if you said Pix, they would shoot. So you'd be like, Pix. And it would shoot a laser up and try to match you saying
nice.
It. And then some kids would try to like cheat the system. They'd be like, Pix. Just to try to keep constant stream. Yeah.
Nice. Very
it's funny,
cool.
like kids show cutaway stuff.
I know, dude, the old days. Well, let's move away from the old days of TV. We're going to move to the new days of TV with our first guest, who is going to be on TV April the 25th, I think, and I could be wrong on that. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but he's going to be on a show on Paramount Plus, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his music, and we're going to not offend him, because everything I've read, he'll beat the hell out of us. So no. I don't want any problems with our next guest, but Andrew Hagar will be joining us next. So why don't we play a little clip of some of his music, and then we will come back with Andrew Hagar right here on Chris Akin Presents. And we are back. That was Red Light Appetite. That is Andrew Hagar. And joining us now, there he is. It's Andrew Hagar. Andrew, how are you, man?
Good. How you doing, guys?
Good. Good to meet you, talk Andrew. To you, man. Dude, I'm going to start with just saying point blank, as unbelievable as this is, and everybody is your dad's fan. You know that.
Sure. Not everybody.
Yeah, everybody except for the asshole Roth guys that just want to say, he sucked. You know,
just the people that want to beat down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they should have they should have you in their chat rooms to just whoop their ass for saying such things.
I got better things to do, and I would hope that they would too. But
I'm with you. What's most unbelievable to me, Andrew, is that as famous as your dad is, and let's face it, he's one of, is it fair to say he's one of the top 20 most famous rock stars alive?
I would say you're pretty accurate with that. He's up there.
I mean, he's way up there.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know that hardly anybody is aware of your music.
Probably not. I mean, I've been flying under the radar for a while now, and that's fine by me. I'm not the kind of guy that looks actively for the limelight or anything. I've just been steady moving, steady grooving, and here we are releasing new music. You know, I got a new EP coming out next month, and you know, onwards and upwards.
Absolutely. Well,
Sounded good what I heard there.
Well, and that's my point is, you know, I didn't know. I'll be perfectly honest. Your publicist hits me up and says, "Hey, do you want to interview Sammy Hagar's son?" My first question was, about what? You know, I was like, what does he do? You know? And then she's like, oh, he has music. And I looked it up, and there's like, what, 3-4 years worth of music that's out there on Spotify and whatever. I started listening to it. I was like, this is really good, you know? And I was like, how come nobody knows that you have music? You know, is it, and I'm going to make a guess and then I'm going to let you answer, but
sure.
My guess is it's because you've made a purposeful effort not to glom onto your dad's back.
1000%. I would agree with you with that tenfold. And I mean, the first stuff that I released, I actually released 3 or 4 different EPs before I used my own name. And all of those EPs were different genres. I was just exploring different stuff as an artist. I spent 3 or 4 years touring as like an acoustic kind of folk Americana act. So obviously a lot of my dad's fans, that might not be super palatable. So I wasn't really out there trying to, you know, acquire his fans as my own fans. I was trying to build my own thing up. And I mean, I'm still trying to do that. Every time I get to open for Pops, it's a great experience, you know. It's a built-in crowd. I mean, some people out there who ride coattails will never know what it's like to play like a small club show for 8 people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's a huge part of coming up as a real live musician. So, you know, it's I don't know. It's a good experience, even though it might not be the easiest thing to do for a lot of people. You know, most people who are out there trying to like fight for their, you know, mind share in the musical marketplace. A lot of people have these weird expectations about being like the next Justin Bieber or, you know, being the next Van Halen or something. I mean, I started a little later than most people, and I saw all of the, you know, the bad side of fame. And I never really had any illusions about being a big star. I just want to express myself as an artist, you know?
Yeah. All right. I got to question that.
Sure.
How can you be, how old were you when Van Halen was going? You were in your teens?
No, I was young. I mean, Van Halen and my dad broke up when I was about 7 or 8 years old.
Okay. So you weren't like, we're running around and seeing your dad on every billboard of every major city?
No. I mean, I was on tour with him quite a bit when I was a kid, though, and I saw it kind of from the side of the stage and backstage. So to speak, you know?
Right on. Yeah. Well, let's talk about what you have been doing before we get back to the music, because this is fascinating to me, and I just didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
From reading your bio, you're an MMA guy.
I was a trainer for over 10 years. I was a competitor myself. I was a journalist in mixed martial arts. Yeah, that was my life for a long time.
And you trained Fabrizio Verdum?
I was the head coach at his gym. I was the head Muay Thai coach at Fabrizio Verdum's gym before, during, and after his reign as UFC heavyweight world champion.
Yeah. So, you know, you're saying that kind of casually. I'm saying that like, wow, that's a world champion that you kind of helped in some way mold into being elite. I mean, really, and for anybody that watches MMA, you know, and you know this more than anybody, the lifespan of an MMA fighter is microscopic. You can, I always point to Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell, king of the goddamn world, until he took one punch in the face, and then it was over. And he couldn't fight anymore. No,
it's brutal. And I mean, the thing about a guy like that, who, I mean, Chuck was such a great competitor. He's come down to Cabo quite a few times, and he's a really super nice guy too. I really like Chuck. But the thing about Chuck was, you know, he would take a punch to give a punch a lot of times because he has a great chin. And what you see is not necessarily the truth. It looks like he just kind of lost his chin all at once.
Yeah.
But it happens over time, and then it happens all at once in the ring. All it takes is the right shot, and then once you get knocked out once, your brain just, it doesn't function the same under pressure like that. Then you get caught with a good shot and you just go out like that again. So, you know, it was terrible what happened to him because, yeah, like you said, he was just absolute world beater, knocking everybody out. And then all of a sudden people thought he was like washed up or something. And it's unfortunate, you know?
It is. It is. He was my favorite, you know, when I mean, I was an old school guy. Like,
Same.
I loved 1, 2, and 3 when they would just bring them in the ring 3 times and let them beat the hell out of each other. You know, I loved that stuff. But when Dana bought MMA or UFC rather, and you know, repackaged it, remolded it, Chuck was like one of the first big icons.
Oh yeah.
But much like Chuck, the second biggest icon I think would probably be Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
And she same exact story.
Yeah.
No one could touch her. She's knocking people out in 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then ran into a buzzsaw and could never do it again.
Yeah. I mean, Holly Holm was a sleeper contender. You know, obviously she's had her issues at the top too. I mean, it's a very competitive division. But the problem with Ronda was, you know, I think ultimately poor management, and her lead trainer, Edmund Taverdian, probably installed a false sense of confidence in her striking and her stand-up. And she was ahead of the game, like ahead of the curve when she was, you know, the queen of her division in the sport. But then the rest of the division caught up with her. And ultimately she was an incredible elite level athlete, but in the grand scheme of things in MMA, perhaps a little bit one-dimensional. And you had other people in there who were just, you know, absolute stone cold killers, and they caught up very quickly with that skill gap, you know?
Yeah, no, and again, it's crazy. When you watch it now, like obviously I'll stay with the women's division for a minute. I just love that I could talk to anybody about MMA because I'm a total junkie and I never get to talk about it. But
that's awesome.
I'm watching now with like Amanda Nunes. And I mean, she obviously has been an absolute killer as well. But it seems like she's starting to slow down a little bit too. I mean, she hasn't been beaten up yet.
Right.
But she's nowhere near as dominant as she was even 6 months, a year ago.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, again, the sport catches up with everybody. Either people and coaches start, you know, discovering what your weakness is and formulating game plans that will, you know, win the fight either on points or exploit some little tactical error. Or, you know, like you said, the lifespan of a professional MMA athlete is so short because the beatings you take in training, the grueling training of the sport just wears away at your body. That's why so many guys are taking performance enhancing supplements. And it's just, I mean, it's not a long game, that sport. You have about 10 years from when you go pro to where you can really make an impact before your body really starts to give out on you and betray. Yeah.
What do you think of all of these not divisions, but sub groups or whatever you want to call it, like Bellator, Pride, One, you know, like my personal favorite of the moment is One.
Yeah, One is fantastic.
One is so, and I try to explain it to people. You I'm sure get it, but the difference between One and everything else is instead of just saying, all right, put these two guys in the ring because they weigh the same. It's put them in because yes, they weigh the same, but they also have the same skill set. So you get so much better fights because you're bringing in 2 jiu-jitsu black belts or 2 kickboxers or 2. The one I don't understand is these guys that do the wrestling and the submission wrestling. It's like, who's doing that? Who's volunteering for that? It's crazy.
That's a huge sport in most places of the world, though. Like, I mean, if you look at traditionally like Olympic wrestling, for instance, most of the best people in the world come from like, you know, former Soviet satellite states, Iran, you know, Turkey, like places where you wouldn't necessarily think of like having a developed, you know, sporting atmosphere, but they produce some of the best wrestlers in the world. So grappling has become like almost like the new Olympic style wrestling where people from all over the world are competing in, you know, really elite level organizations like obviously the ADCC, Abu Dhabi Combat Club. That's been a huge thing that's been growing amongst the jiu-jitsu base in America. But yeah, one championship is such an incredible organization because, like you said, they pit really interesting fighters against each other and kind of match them stylistically. And it's closer to something you saw when like Pride Fighting Championships was big. And then also the rule set being that it's not unified MMA rules. They allow knees to the head on the ground, soccer kicks and stomps, along with elbows, which is something you really didn't see much outside of Brazil. So it makes the fight much more interesting because wrestlers can't stall when they fail on a takedown, like on a double leg takedown. So it makes the fight much more compelling and interesting, and probably a lot more brutal for most people.
Yeah, it's way brutal. But I'll tell you another thing in that, and then we'll get off this and talk about your actual career. I know I'm going into this, but the other thing that I like in one over everybody else is the fact, I don't remember the owner's name, but the fact that that owner, if he likes the fight, he throws him 50 grand on the spot, because it makes every single fighter just come out to murder. I mean, you don't, I mean, you watch some UFC fights, you get somebody that's kicking someone's ass for 2 rounds. It is not uncommon to see him just kind of take it easy for the 3rd round.
Yep, they got it in the bag. Yeah,
there's none of that in this, because all you got to do is have that crazy knockout or that crazy submission or whatever, and you get an extra 50 grand for your trouble.
Sweep the leg, sweep the leg. 50 grand.
And I don't know if it's just the fighters that are there, but they're not like UFC. They're not Conor McGregor's that have $100 million in the bank. All of these guys, $50,000 is like somebody handing me $5 million.
Exactly. They have a lot of fighters from Southeast Asia and other the Philippines, where an extra $50,000 American is going to go a very long way. So
absolutely,
those guys come out and they're slinging, dude. I love that.
Yeah, I see a lot of Hoist Gracie Academy stuff here in San Diego. The cars driving around. So I don't know. They must have franchised it out or something.
Oh yeah, the Gracie Academies. I mean, that's a whole jiu-jitsu as a business model. I mean, it's not really that profitable to own gyms, but jiu-jitsu gyms do have a lot more potential as like a business than most other gyms, I gotta say. So they've turned that into like a whole franchise. Yeah. Even some of the Americans, like Eddie Bravo with 10th Planet. I mean, he's franchised that to death, and he's incredibly successful now.
Sure. And you can't underspeak Hoist Gracie.
No,
I mean. And especially if you watch the early, the UFC 1 and 2.
That was David and Goliath kind of stuff there in most cases.
They'd have Hoist Gracie, who maybe weighed 150 pounds, maybe, and he'd be fighting some 400-pound monster and just and just whooping them. I mean, it wasn't even like he would have to do anything crazy. He would just kind of get in there, and the guy'd hit him a couple times, and boom, 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 and the guy was like,
only there for like 2 seasons. Before
he fought in the first couple, and then I don't know what happened after that, but
he was so famous from that.
Ken Shamrock came in, and that was that.
Yeah, that's right.
Look, I love UFC and MMA. I watch it religiously. I'm a USC Pass guy. Nice. I literally have Showtime so that I can get the Bellator stuff.
Awesome.
I have the ESPN Plus so that I can get. I mean,
I have Paramount Plus because Chris gave me the code, so I'm going to be able to watch your show because you have a show coming out on Paramount Plus.
That's right.
That's great.
Nice. Well, Andrew. Let's talk a little past MMA. Sure. I saw another, and I'm picking factoids out of your bio because it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. You were on what is one of my top 3 favorite shows of the last 10 years, or you worked with it with the Americans.
Oh, yeah. Matthew Reese.
What did you do there?
I trained him for that role, for his title role in the show. And, I also, me and my buddy Marcus Koval, who's like the founder of Krav Maga Worldwide, he and I choreographed all the fight scenes in the first episode as well, in the pilot episode.
Oh, no kidding.
So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a great show. I was offered a position on that show, but I would have had to move to New York. And at the time I was, operating a pretty successful training practice in Marina Del Rey and Venice Beach, California.
Much nicer.
Yeah. But I wonder what would have happened if I would have taken that gig.
Sure.
But
do you think that show... And I love that show. I've watched it start to finish probably 10 times. I really, really enjoyed that show.
Yeah, it's a great show.
And the writing was so smart in that show, which you know,
Yeah,
you watch TV,
can't
you
say
don't
that
get
for
a lot of
everything.
that. You don't get a ton of that. And the writing was so smart. Do you think that show got held back solely because of where it was placed instead of being like on HBO or something?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I mean, nowadays in the marketplace for anything, whether we're talking about music or any form of entertainment, I mean, it comes down to eyeballs. Like, it's so difficult to elevate yourself above all of the noise,
Right.
whether you have a fantastic show or not. It's like I was just talking yesterday about this with, like A24 is a great company that produces and distributes fantastic films,
Sure.
and they kind of have a pedigree for putting out these amazing independent films. But at the same time, like, as a smaller kind of studio, not as many people are going to see that film. You got, everybody and their mother seeing any big new Marvel movie or any big Disney movie, which, like, whatever, it's this thing over and over again. Whereas you get a movie like The Banshees of Inisherin that comes out, and like, how many people actually saw that, But
Sure.
the people that did see that were like, oh my God, this is a fantastic film. It's multi-layered. It's Shakespearean. It's, it's a great movie. And The Americans was just like that. I think it was held back a little bit, not critically, but just by the network. People just couldn't watch it or didn't even know it existed.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I used to tell people all the time, you got to watch this show. You got to watch this show. And they'd be like, what's it on? It was on FX, I think.
Yeah, I think it was on FX. It might've been on USA
or FXX or something. It was like on like the sub of FX. And I would tell people what is on, and they were like, I don't have that. And I was like, you're missing, you're missing out. But yeah, great show. Loved it. And, it just, your career is very interesting, to say the least.
Thank you.
So what is your full-time gig? Is it music? Is it training? Is it movies? Or what is it that you do full-time, or what do you consider your full-time?
I mean, right now my life is pretty much, I do commercial voice acting as well. So I do a lot of stuff with that every day. I'm submitting for different projects. I'll get a phone call from somebody and have to do like a cold read. So I do a lot of that. I still train a couple clients here and there, but I don't work with fighters anymore. It's just soccer moms and friends and stuff. Work their, like, workout plans. I actually train them sometimes. I'll hold mitts for some people. And then, I also make music. I have been doing something where I was like a part of a sync team for a while, where I was like the lyric guy. We'd get like a sync brief where there would be an upcoming film or TV show where people already had, music placements, and we needed to write songs for sync. So usually I would be like ghostwriting for another artist. Been doing that for a long time. But yeah, I do a bunch of different stuff. I'm a really creative person. I consider myself like a real artist. And so I just do what I can to keep that dream alive. You know what I mean?
Sure. Let me ask an insulting question, which is not meant to be, but I'm going to ask it.
That's fine.
Your dad's worth $1 billion.
Yeah.
Do you have to work?
Yes. Yeah. My father never really gave us much. He instilled a very solid work ethic. I had 3 jobs when I was 15 years old, and I've kept 2 or 3 jobs my entire life since then. Right. So yeah, I mean, when I was coaching people, for instance, like, I mean, I was training, 6 to 8 clients most days of the week, 6 days a week. So I'd be teaching multiple classes, working with multiple, private clients, training a couple fighters, and driving all over Los Angeles to do that. And then when I transitioned out of that and started to play shows, it's like I was still training people when I wasn't touring. And that was a really difficult, schedule to balance. I ended up having to pretty much quit training people for a while because I was touring a lot, especially in 2016, 2017, 2018. So, yeah, I mean, I do have to work. I'm not like massively independently wealthy. I don't have like any inheritance or anything right now. Obviously, my dad is still alive, thank goodness. But, but you know what I mean?
And
like,
looks great for his age. He's not going anywhere.
No, yeah, he's fantastic. He's we're making sure he's on top of his regimen too. We got him a bunch of little health and training tips and stuff.
All that tequila has him pickled healthy, I guess.
Like Keith, man, like Keith Richards,
Exactly.
That's right.
Well, it's really interesting, man, to me, and I'm going to assume that you're probably happy that it's been this way, instead of him just saying, all right, go do your pet project and stay out of my hair, which a lot of celebrity dads do.
Yep.
Which I think leads into the show that you're doing. Talk a little bit about the show that's what it comes on in 2 weeks or a week and a half or something.
It's actually been out for a few
Oh,
weeks.
is it? Okay.
Yep. So it's already
We got to binge
released,
watch it, Chris.
Yeah, we do.
You can actually watch it for free on YouTube, or the first episode's available for free on Paramount Plus.
Okay, great.
The series is called MTV Family Legacy, and we have basically a 15-minute segment, half of the episode. I share the episode with Draven, who is the son of Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park.
Right.
So he's got his segment. I've got my segment. He's a sweet, wonderful kid.
I know his mom, Samantha.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, the experience was really fun. I mean, I sat down and did about 7 hours of interviews. I think originally they were going to do 10 episodes, and each person was supposed to have their own full-length episode, but I don't know why. Just, probably network stuff.
Sure.
They ended up squashing it down to 5. And it was fun. I mean, we talked about a lot of really heavy stuff. I always talk about mental health any chance that I get, any platform I get.
Sure.
But they didn't air really any of that stuff. They kind of took some things out of context, chopped together their own little stuff. And that's always interesting to see what the network is going to use,
Right.
I've resisted the call to do reality television or any of that stuff for years now. But this project, the way it was pitched to me, sounded like it was a lot cooler, and I'd be able to actually showcase myself, my life, my music without compromising my integrity. So
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, since you brought up the mental health, let's talk about it. What angle do you come at it from? Do you come at it as somebody that's fought with it? Do you come at it as somebody that has had people in your life that you've had to kind of help walk, from a bad place to a good place? Where does that all fit in your life?
All of the above. I mean, mental health awareness and the struggle with it has been a huge part of my journey. I helped a lot of guys who were coming back from various combat scenarios with severe PTSD. I helped them rehabilitate and get back into a normal life through combat sports training, through meditation, through therapy, through, the exploration of certain highly beneficial psychedelics, like all of that stuff. And mental health has shaped my journey and my music as well. I've had several very close friends commit suicide in various capacities, and it's been a really troubling thing for me. So I had to, be really diligent about my own mental health practice, meditation, therapy, all that stuff. And I really just like to harp on the idea that people need to talk about it more. And I like to make the point that, I have a lot of friends that are from the Midwest, for instance, from communities where it's not okay to talk about your feelings classically, especially as a man. And a lot of them now are in therapy and are becoming more emotional creatures with higher emotional intelligence. Right. And it's having a huge benefit to their life, and making a huge impact in their relationships. And, it's 2023, the stigma should be over. And I'm glad that we're part of this new era where it is changing. The conversation is changing and becoming more open. But, any chance I can. I mean, the whole idea behind the concept of this record that I did with Trev Lukather, limited edition Psycho, which is now 2 EPs. I mean, it's all about mental health, my own struggles with mental health, the struggles of people in my family, my close friends in my circle. And it's just highlighting various, negative thought patterns. There's a song that's out that I released a couple months ago called If You Wanna, and that's kind of all about the negative, self-talk spirals that a lot of artists find themselves in, and imposter syndrome, and just some of the ways that you can pull yourself out of that. You have to master your mind, or your mind is going to master you.
Sure.
So.
All right, let me be Midwest douchebag that doesn't always say what he thinks.
Sure.
Do you think that in today's world, with the way today's world is going, that a lot of people rely too much on the term mental health and avoid actually taking some of the steps that they need to take to just be tougher, to be stronger?
Yes, I'm a huge believer in Stoicism and Stoic philosophy as well. And I think that it's important to strengthen yourself through struggle. You see a lot of people that are kind of just acting as if, that don't really have the mental or emotional experience with the struggle. And I mean, that's a huge part of social media in general, is just Can I curse on this?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, the bullshit on social media just being off the charts. Like, there are a lot of people that are acting and posing like something that don't really have the substance behind it. And it's like when you see someone, like, I used to have a lot of friends that I trained that were bouncers, and like, you see people out and about, they get a couple drinks in them and everybody thinks they're Conor McGregor. They start jawing and doing all this stuff, and you can really quickly tell the difference between somebody who has been in a lot of fights or who is a professional fighter and someone who's just pretending, right? Like, you can tell very quickly who's fluent in the language of violence. And it's a lot like, everybody speaks Spanish, right? Everybody knows, you know, por favor, gracias, donde está el baño, you know, all this stuff. But then when you start saying that to like someone who does speak Spanish and they start speaking Spanish back, you're like, oh, I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
You know, it's like, if you try to pretend that you speak the language of violence and someone who's fluent starts speaking it to you, you can't just say, oh, I don't speak violence. You know, it's like, that's not how that shit works. It's too late.
No, you're 100%. Well, it's like, you know, I'll tell you, and it's not a secret, but I was in a pretty nasty industrial explosion, like 69% burn, 52% third degree with grafts, like,
oh my God,
real deal. 22 surgeries, 14 months of rehab, relearn to use my fingers and stuff. I mean, it was a deal.
Wow.
And going through that now, and this is why I said I'm that Midwestern tough guy douchebag.
Yeah, right.
It comes from the fact that when I hear somebody complaining that they can't get on a plane with their support animal, I'm just like, fuck you, dude. You know, you don't know any kind of real struggle. When you're struggling to make it from today to tomorrow, you know, or you're struggling to not pass out from pain as they crank your fingers to reteach you how to use them.
Oh my God.
That's mental toughness. And I personally have a problem when I hear people these days complain about their, you know, their depression and their, you know, if you're depressed, that's cool. And I get it. And you should do what you got to do. At the same time, I think it's become almost in a very similar way to the way racism and racist terms have become, to where the words have lost value because so many people have misused them. Does that make sense?
I just thought of a show, Chris, you should have a show called Give You Something to Cry About. You just take people that are whining and you just throw them into a blast furnace.
Jesus. I don't want to do that to
That got dark. That got real fucking dark.
Something to cry about. There you go.
That's right.
Something
there
to
we
cry
go.
About.
We're bookmarking. We're trademarking that one. Can you hook me up with somebody at Paramount to put that on there? Nice.
So
well, Andrew, let's talk music, man.
Absolutely.
You have a new video out there, a new visualizer video for Systematic Minds, which is another great tune.
Thank you.
And kind of like I said before, people should go onto Spotify and hear your music, because I guarantee people have not heard the collection of songs, but this is the latest one. Tell me a little bit about this song and writing it and that.
Yeah, so Systematic Minds is actually the first song I worked on with Trev Lukather. He's my co-writer and producer. I was writing music for years just by myself, and had some stuff cooking right when the pandemic started. You know, I had a South by Southwest appearance, a whole, you know, Western European tour, a London date where I was going to do a single release show and all this stuff. And then everything just, you know, poof, gone. So in the wake of that and a couple, you know, failed label deals, I was kind of just sitting on a bunch of music and wondering what I was going to do with it. And, you know, if you sit on music too long, you kind of you move away from it as an artist, you know what I mean? Like, and even though it's new for other people, it's just, you know, you kind of just get over it. So I was looking for something new because I wasn't really happy with what was happening. And one day, December 2020, Trev Lukather hit me up, who's, you know, one of my closest friends. We've been friends for like over a decade. And he had just started producing and was delving into that world. And he came up with an idea that he thought I would really like. And so he sent me like a rough instrumental bed. And I was like, dude, this is really cool. Like, I'm going to come down to LA. Let's work on this. So I drove down and we spent the whole night essentially writing what would become Systematic Minds. And that was the first song we did together. And then we spent the better part of the next year finishing a record together. And
Okay.
same thing. I had a couple, you know, labels that were knocking on my door. I had a couple managers that rotated through that were making a lot of promises and not delivering. And they were all telling me, oh, you got to wait on it. We're going to wait for the right time to release this stuff. So here we are, you know, nearly 3 years after the fact, and I'm releasing this song finally. And now we have, you know, an EP coming out in June. But yeah, this song is really cool. It takes a lot of inspirations from our youth. Like Trev is more of a, you know, stadium anthemic kind of rocker.
Sure.
Whereas, you know, I grew up very firmly entrenched in like the punk and hardcore scene, and, you know, loved like metal and industrial music and, you know, the harder stuff. But I also, you know, growing up with my mom, she was a huge fan of classic country, outlaw country, folk Americana. So that's like kind of where a lot of my musical inspiration came from. And I tried to bring some of my love of like 90s alternative into this record. And me and Trev kind of met in the middle. And then you get a song like Systematic Minds that's, you know, a little enigmatic, mysterious, has some, you know, psychedelic elements, some, you know, David Gilmour type shit, and some just really cool stuff. Some big like fucking spicy Def Leppard drums, you know, a lot of fun stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. So for you, what will it, when I talk to you a year from now, what will it take for you to say, well, the EP was successful? Is it a number of plays? Is it a number of sales? Is it a number of gigs? Is it already because you did it the way you wanted to? What will make it successful to you?
Kind words.
Yeah, right. That last one, just being able to do it the way that I want to do it. I don't have a manager right now. I don't have a label breathing down my neck telling me I have to do it a certain way. Like the music marketplace right now is completely different than it was 5 years ago, let alone 15, 20, 50 years ago. So a lot of the people that I've been working with, they've been telling me things that are just not applicable to how things go now. They want me to pay a PR person $5,000 to get a release article with like Rolling Stone or something. And it's like, what is that going to do? That's not going to move the needle for me in any real discernible way. That might mean I get like 500 more streams. Whereas if I pay a freaking, you know, digital marketing guy, you know, $1,000 to run like Facebook and YouTube ads, you know, I could like triple my user base and all these things. It's like, it's a completely different ballgame now. And I don't have these unrealistic expectations, like, of being a huge superstar. Like I said, I just want to express myself as an artist. I'm happy that people are paying attention to my music. I mean, you know, like we don't have a lot, but I have like around 20,000 monthly listeners on Spotify right now. I have probably more than that on iTunes and Apple Music. We just had a #1 rock single in Hungary of all places. I have a fan base in Europe. On iTunes, we went #1 on the rock charts for Systematic Minds in Hungary. We got 11 overall on iTunes. So, I mean, it's like, we're moving, man. Like we're having a good time doing it. I have a great band. I love playing live shows. And to really be successful for me, I need to be able to get back on tour where I'm not, you know, breaking my bank to do so, and get back out there in Europe and play a lot of fun European shows. They still have a huge rock market out there. And the people there are so much more receptive to live music in general. They actually want to listen. And I really love touring. It's really difficult. It's hard work, but it's incredibly satisfying. And that's still one of the only ways to get out there and make real fans. You know, like you can do all this stuff on TikTok and blow up on TikTok and have, you know, 50 million streams off TikTok, and then you play a live show and nobody gives a fuck. It's like, to me, being a real musician is getting out there and playing live shows and doing it in the moment, doing it live every night, and having a great time and like really making a connection with people in the same room, you know?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Now, I know it isn't a competition, but is it bothersome to you that the other guy that was in the band with your dad, his kid is getting all the praise, and rightfully so. Wolfie's great talent.
Yeah, he's super talented.
But it's annoying to me as a fan, now that I've heard your music, seeing that you're not getting that same kind of love from the media. You know, it almost seems like, well, why is he the anointed one?
And you look cooler in your video.
Got hotter girls too.
Thank you. But again, like, you're absolutely right. It's not a competition. Like, I think that the whole idea of a zero-sum game is silly in general.
Sure.
There's plenty of people out there that enjoy probably his music and my music. You know what I mean? But
can't we all be friends? God.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And I don't see why we couldn't. But just in general, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about the music industry and the way that the entertainment industry works, and why certain people get over and why certain people have to just toil for years before they get half of the same amount of attention. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, Wolfie's relationship with his father, very different than my relationship with my father. And his relationship with other, you know, powerful people in the music industry, very different than my relationships.
See,
and that's
I don't know. Hold on, man. I got to stop you there. I mean, Trev is well known, more than just being Luke's son. I mean, he's well known for working with Hailstorm and whatnot. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a bunch of big bands.
You obviously have, you know, your dad's legacy behind you.
Sure.
That absolutely should. And again, I'm not pointing at anybody, but I see Bastardane, the Metallica kids, you know, getting success, and I see the kids from Slipknot getting some love too. And it's like, wait a minute, you're making music, you've got the lineage, and you've got the right people. Where's the disconnect?
You're preaching to the choir, my friend. I wish I could tell you, but unfortunately, that's just the way things work. So
I hear you.
Again, like, you know, I'm doing everything I can over here on my part, breaking my bank and busting my ass, making it work for me. And that's fine. Because again, like, at the end of the day, we all have to be satisfied with our own lives and be comfortable in our own skin. Like, I'm a very, you know, experienced person in life. I've had some pretty challenging experiences, and I'm not trying to sit here and say, oh, you know, people should feel sorry for me or something. That's absolutely not what I'm saying.
Right.
But like, I've had my own challenges in life. I've reached a point in my life, in my maturity, where I'm very secure with my situation. I love my life. And even if I'm not going out and playing with like Metallica or something, the successes that I have are successes nonetheless.
Right.
And it makes me happy. Yeah. So if it takes me 10 more years before I get to go out and do the things that I want to do and achieve my goals, that's fine. Because again, I'm playing the long game. You know, this is my life, and I love it.
Right on.
Well said. Well said.
There you go. Well, dude, we're gonna wrap this one up by playing a little clip from Systematic Minds.
Right.
Certainly, we want people to check you out. Of course, you can go to Spotify or YouTube Music or wherever and hear you there. But where should we send people online to keep up with you and potential tour dates and buying actual merchandise and all that stuff?
That's a great question. I'm the most active on Instagram at Andrew Hagar Official. I also have a TikTok. I don't really do much on there, but I will. And, you know, all the stuff that I post on Facebook is just an aggregate of my Instagram. So check me out on Instagram. That's where I'm doing the most things. That's where you'll be able to find out my tour dates and all the upcoming news. So
very good. Well, one more time, it is Andrew Hagar, Systematic Minds, and we're going to play the video right now. And Andrew, thanks so much for joining us.
Right here. Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Here we go.
Lost at the edge, looking for a comeback. While we're chosen for the rest, there's no sympathy in these disconnected times. Can you see the irony? History of lies, living in disguise.
And right back here on CHRIS Akin Presents, Erik and I. Erik, what'd you think of that interview? That was fun. Huh?
That was very awesome.
That was
fun. Nice of him to come by, man. What a great dude.
Yeah, great dude. And his music kicks ass. So definitely everybody should check that out. But now we are going to change directions really harshly, I guess. We're gonna take a hard left here, and we're gonna go into kind of, I guess, United States history, I guess. You know, I I don't want to say a fan because that just sounds terrible, but I am a big follower of historical events, and I've said it on the show before. I'll say it again. My favorite interview to this point that I've ever done was with Freeway Rick Ross, the drug dealer that funded the Iran-Contra scandal.
The real Rick Ross.
The real Rick Ross, yeah. And I mean, just because of the importance in world history or United States history that his acts did, even though they were horrific acts. The guy we're going to talk to next has been through one of the most horrific acts in our government's history, as far as I'm concerned. And YouTube, if you're going to cut me off, do it now, because we're not going to kiss ass to your stupid standards. We are going to talk some real talk. Our next guest is he's an author. He wrote the book Waco, A Survivor Story. He is obviously a survivor of the Waco siege, and he's here to tell us about it, as well as he's a music fan. So David Thibodeau, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, man.
Good to meet you, David.
You hear me all right?
Yep, hear you
Yes.
fine,
Fantastic.
sir. Well, David, we, as I kind of talked up to into the break or into this segment, and as when I talked to you last week, I was telling you, I'm fascinated by Waco, as I think so many people are.
Yeah.
You know, not for me, not so much because of the event of it, as much as looking at it now through different eyes. When we looked at it 30 years ago in 93, when everything happened, we looked at it through the eyes of the government is telling us this, CNN is telling us this. It all must be true what they're saying. It's clearly a bunch of crazed lunatics in a wood barn that burned themselves to death. You know, that's kind of the impression. And now that we see that the media is so full of shit, it really is the right time, I think, for the real story of what you've been through to to be told. Do you agree?
Well, with just about everything that's historical, it's about a generation, especially if it's tragic, or it takes about a generation for the truth to really come out, or even to start to come out. Like in my case, I wanted to scream from the rooftops for a long time, and no one wanted to hear what I have to say. The only people that would even listen to me was the right. And I mean like gun clubs, constitutionalists, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Those are the only people that would give me the respect to even listen to what I had to say.
Sure.
It certainly wasn't the liberals. I was raised liberal. I'm thinking, where's NPR? Where how come they don't want to know? They should want to know. These are the part of the intellectuals, right? As I like to say.
Right.
And yet they didn't give two shits because it was religion, guns, and Clinton was in office.
Right.
That's it. That's all I needed to know. But the truth is, this country founded on religious freedoms and freedom of the press, and of course the Bill of Rights and all these institutions that we grew up with, right? Mm-hmm. We're supposed to have these things, and I used to think that the media was pretty truthful until I went abroad.
Okay.
Well, until Waco, but then going abroad, I learned more about America reading. Sure. Papers from other countries than I did here. And if you're a student of Noam Chomsky at all, he did a book called Manufacturing Consent.
Right.
And he took the papers from all the greatest, Athens, he'd take the Israeli Times, London Times. He would take all these papers and he would meticulously go through every article and every paper and show where they cut out one or two lines to make it say something different, and how each country has its own spin on any particular subject. Did this meticulously. But, I learned a lot from that book. And, it's why I watch Breaking Points now on YouTube. It's, there are people out, and I feel blessed to have found, for the internet and for YouTube and for people like Crystal and Sagar that are out there trying to weed through all the BS that we're getting into and just say, this is what's really happening.
Right.
This is what we're really finding. And I didn't think I'd see that in my lifetime, man. So I actually do have a little bit of hope for this generation. But that's the hard part. The hard part is you got to stop listening to the two sides that are screaming at each other and realize that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Right.
right.
No, you're right. And now
By the
let's
way,
dig
I was
into.
hoping you'd break me in on the on Mr. Hagar's interview there. That was great. I watched the whole thing,
Oh,
and
thanks.
I had a lot to say. I wanted to hang with him too. It's too bad. Anyway, this was very great.
Did everybody
tune,
notice
too.
how he had red?
That song was
He had the
kick-ass,
red
man.
rocker thing going. He had the red shirt. He had the
Yeah.
red wall.
Yeah.
I was looking at the picture behind
red
him, and
wall.
at first I thought it was a picture of Billy Squire, and then I go, it's probably Sebastian Bach. But then I realized it was his dad. I don't know if you could tell that picture behind him on the wall.
Of course.
Oh, that was Sammy.
It's very cool.
I was hoping you'd ask him about the UFOs that his dad experienced and how that whole thing worked.
Next
I read
time.
that book. I read that
Next-
book, man. Pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah. Well, that's the thing with you. It's to kind of tie the two worlds together. You were a musician, still are a music fan.
Went to music school. You went to actual school to music.
As musicians, it was a year. I mean, I didn't go to Berkeley, but yeah.
Nice.
I had a blast.
Sure. Now, when you were, anybody that knows the story at all, your story, knows that that's how you met David Koresh, and that's how you got integrated into, the Mount Carmel, more or less.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what was it? I mean, what kind of music were you playing? What kind of music were you into? At the time.
Here we go. This is my fun. All right. So I grew up with everything.
Okay.
From I'm going to start with Bob. Why am I going to start with Bob Denver? I'm going to start with Bob Denver. Yeah. I mean, my mother was listening to Dolly Parton. I like the rock stuff, I remember my father playing Little Queenie, Chuck Berry. And as a little kid, me just dancing the second I heard it. I love music instantly.
Okay.
How about when the lights went out in Georgia?
Oh yeah, the Beatles, that one. What's that Beautiful Balloon one? I mean, there's some pretty stupid the '70s songs that I still kind of like because I'm of that age. But yeah, it was rock to me when I became a teenager. I discovered, before in high school was Led Zeppelin and Rush.
Okay. Of course.
So I would come home from school and spend I had 2 or 3 hours to play before my grandmother got home from work. That was the issue. So I could play until she got home. And it would be like, I put on Led Zeppelin 4, learn the whole album. Okay. Misty Mountain Hop. I couldn't do that killer fill in the middle, that really fast one. I thought it was physically impossible. And I did it every day until the day came that I could do that fill. Blown away.
Nice.
Rush, Moving Pictures. I started that probably my freshman year. By my late sophomore year, I could play every song on that album.
Wow.
And the day that I could do that was huge. So I spent a lot of time playing before I went to Musicians Institute. It's what I wanted to do. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
So it was that, and then Judas Priest, Iron Maiden came out. I heard the Queensryche EP would be when it first came out, Queen of the Reich. I'm like, what the hell is this? This is freaking awesome. Dio, of course, Sabbath. I like Sabbath more every day for some weird reason than I did as a kid.
Sure.
But it was a Zeppelin, it was Priest, Maiden, all that stuff, man. Metal Church, just any new metal band that came out, I was down with, man. I just loved it. Motley Crue, all of
Sure.
it.
Now, what were you playing at the time when David Koresh saw you or found you?
I was playing with a band called YMI, and we were playing at we were house band at the Roxbury when the Roxbury was open. We were playing on the Strip.
Okay.
Played a couple big places. Had a really good time with that band too. Original. We're the kind of band that we couldn't get a deal, but other musicians and other bands would come to see us and like the band. And to me, that's really a sign of success, being, it's like the Chili Peppers, right? Every musician in LA wanted to go see the Chili Peppers. They were just so cool at the time. Everything they did was cool. So, they had a certain mass appeal, but it's like a comedian. It's like, when I want to see the guy that all the comedians want to go see. I want to see the band that all the musicians want to go see, like Dream Theater. That stuff's it's just fun. You're doing that odd meter stuff. I mean, you think of Zappa. He had a very kind of interesting a fan base, but what a genius, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No
Genius.
question, man. Well, dude, so help me understand this, and I'm gonna probably approach this in a totally different way than anybody ever has, but maybe not, but we'll see. I know me and my musical obsession. There is no words no person could ever say to me to make me give that up. And yet to get brought into, as it's pictured in my head from watching 8 million Waco documentaries, to get brought into that, you almost had to give that piece of yourself up. Not the skill of playing, but the music that you loved. Like for me, Pantera, Judas Priest, Metallica, those are my bands. And there is nothing anybody could ever say to me to make me say, you know what? I'm not going to listen to that anymore. Instead, I'm going to sing songs about Jesus. You know, there's just, it could never happen for me.
That's not what it was like though. See, I didn't have to give anything up, musically anyway.
Okay.
We'll talk about the rest later.
Yeah, we're party wise. You guys partied a little bit too.
Once in a great while, believe me. But not like when I was living in Hollywood and going to music. So we would do the crazy punch. Oh my God, we'd soak the fruit 24 hours and
sangria.
Bacardi 151. We were freaking stupid. We did stupid shit. No, the fact I survived, that's crazy. So, you know, at the time, I was trying to get a more sober mind anyway. I wanted to learn scripture. I wanted to know what it was all about. So, you know, doing away with the drugs and alcohol, that wasn't a big deal for me. And drugs was pot. That's all we were doing back then.
Right.
Sure.
But it's, I was trying to step my game up. I wanted to know what the scripture really said. So, but I wasn't looking for it. It found me. That's the key.
Okay.
But to answer your question about the metal and the rock, David listened to metal and rock. He was Joe Satriani, Steve Vai were his influences. And he may not have liked, the only thing, it was a Dio. And Steve Schneider said something about the satanic cover and all that. And I was like, whatever, dude. Dio saved my life. You preach on. I'm never going to stop listening to this. And I listen to music all the time in Mount Carmel. I mean, you know, I had, I was the Fleetwood Mac, all the hard rock stuff, Molly Crew. I never stopped listening to it. And it's not like we weren't allowed. But, you know, I mean, I was never into the heavy satanic stuff either. I wasn't into Striper. I did not like Christian metal. Let's get that out there. No, it was like, just like, I always think of Cartman. It's crappy smoke on the face of the earth. Anyway. But, and I'm not saying there's not some great Christian metal. Don't get me wrong. I like anything as long as it's brilliant. I can listen to rap. I love R&B. I love Motown. Oh my God. You know, don't get me started. But, so there wasn't a sacrifice there. I mean, I always continued to listen to music. The thing is I just was playing with David. I was the drummer in David's band, and he would just basically jam. You heard that song, Mad Mad Living in Waco. He had written that before my time. He went from writing songs to just playing on the guitar really fast.
Okay.
You know, it's like
noodling, just noodling a lot.
Noodling. Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's like that joke. How many guitars does it take to change the light bulb? 10. Want to change the bulb, and 9 to say I can do that faster.
That's right.
That's kind of like what he was, you know, always noodling. And I just play a beat and he'd do that for 45 minutes, and then we'd have a Bible study. It's just like, it was fun at first, but it got old. I'll be honest, it got old to me. I wanted to write songs. I wanted to create things.
Right. So when you got into Mount Carmel, when you get into there, and you know, obviously the media has portrayed it to be this psychotic place with 43-hour sermons and no fun, and, you know, getting whooped if you ate a bite of ice cream. You know, I mean, I've watched every documentary, and there's a zillion things that I'm assuming are misconceptions. But what was it for you that made you want more, see more, think that David could provide you more spiritually or mentally, or just in any way?
That's a great question. But before I answer that question, Can we talk about some of the documentaries really quick?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I just want to say this. Here are the documentaries that I think are worthwhile.
Okay.
There's one called Day 51 that's out there. That's really good. There's Waco, The Rules of Engagement is the best documentary that's been made on it so far.
That's the one with the guy from Wings, right?
No.
No?
That's Ambush at Waco. That's a piece of crap.
Okay.
No, seriously, let's talk about that for a second, then I'll
Sure.
get back to the documentaries. That's a made-for-TV show or movie that was written during the siege.
Okay.
It was all the ATF gave this writer all the information. He wrote this piece of shit movie. In that movie, that's where they get this concept of the ATF guys going after the dogs with fire extinguishers and
Right.
they're putting the dogs out instead. No, they came in and they shot the dogs first thing.
Yeah.
There was no freaking fire extinguishers. That didn't exist. So after that came out, that played for a while. Rules of Engagement came out, and I think that the writer finally found out that he had been misled. The writer of Ambush at Waco was apologized to all the survivors and basically called his own work complete crap because it was spoon-fed by the ATF and the FBI, the information that he put in that film. So he has disowned his own movie and apologized to all the survivors. So I want you all to know that if you watch Ambush at Waco, it is complete propaganda.
Okay.
And really, it fits in play with what they do. When the military goes in and takes a country over, the first thing we do is we start promoting propaganda to promote why we are there in the country to try to win support from the locals. First thing they do is a movie. You know, they take over the radio stations and all that, and we start promoting the American value. You know, that's just done. And that's not even American. That Nazis did that. You go through history, every conquering force. Yeah, it's craft. It's craft at this point. So, so Ambush at Waco, complete piece of crap. They most 75% are complete crap. They just are. So Waco, The Rules of Engagement, excellent. It was nominated for an Oscar. I think the only reason it lost is because that was the year that Steven Spielberg did a documentary on the Holocaust, I believe. But that's the one with the infrared video, and it shows the shooting at the back of the building and all that.
Right.
And you know, the sequel to that, Waco: A New Revelation, which is hard to find. I have copies anyway. Waco: A New Revelation came out, and that talked about the pyrotechnic devices. See, and a lot of other information as well. But we know on infrared tape that we got 2 explosions at the back of the building, and we got people shooting next to the tanks into the building at the back where there's no media back there.
Right.
And I always wondered, you know, I had read all these autopsy reports that showed people had bullet wounds in the center of their head and the center of their chest. And I'm like, that is not conducive with suicide. Even the coroner said, we did not think this was a mass suicide. We believe this was a mass homicide. Even the coroner said that.
Right.
But I didn't understand how. How did that? Was that how? And then I saw the infrared, and then you see tanks. You see these flashes next to the tanks, and there are people shooting into the building. 68 different fully automatic weapons. Fire you can see on the tape. So this happened. I mean, they shot people trying to exit the building, and no one talks about it. No one in the press talks about it.
Right.
Though even the new Netflix documentary, he didn't touch it. That documentary is such a failure, in my estimation, that this new Netflix one, because he didn't talk about the CS gas. He didn't talk about the front doors and the missing door. He didn't talk about Peter Gent being shot. He didn't talk about the tanks entering and destroying the building. He didn't.
They're whitewashing. They whitewash everything.
It goes on and on, dude. He never mentioned the infrared. He never mentioned the people firing from the tank. It's insane. It's, you know, the amount of information left out of that. And this is Netflix. And the system protects itself, my friends.
Yeah.
30 years later, it's still doing it. It's the same crap. So, like you said earlier, Chris, about people understanding now that they're being lied to, hugely important. The fact that, and if you want to get biblical, let's get religion. The Catholic Church, for thousands of years pulled the wool over our eyes. There are scriptures that have never been put in the canons. They're in the Vatican vault somewhere. There is so much that we don't even know anything about the Mother Mary. She was a Jewish woman. I have a friend who's James Tabor's working on something quite quite amazing about the true mother of God, the true mother of Jesus, Mary, who she really was. She was a dynamic Jewish woman. She was a revolutionary. Interesting stuff, man. Listen, history, we definitely have not been giving the truth historically, but it is coming out. And if you have the ears to hear, and if it's something you want to know, you can look for it and you can find these things that I'm talking about. It's fascinating stuff.
Sure.
So what was your question?
More
I'm pretty sure I went off track.
What was it about David's persona or teachings or preachings that was so compelling to you?
Well, number one, for me, I wasn't initiated any other religion. I was baptized a Catholic.
Okay.
But as you may or may not know, there's no scripture at all when you're baptized Catholic. It's here's the
Lord be with you and also with you. Praise be to God and also with you. Yep.
Don't come in there.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
That's right.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day.
Yeah.
So I had to say my prayers at night.
Right.
But then they send me to Sunday school, and it's like, Noah, all these animals got on this thing and didn't eat each other. Oh, it's God. Okay, miracle of God. Okay. Woman comes from the side, from man's rib, and that's the okay. Wow, that's all right. Whatever. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit with us. 3 guys hanging out up in heaven.
Right.
There's just so many things that didn't make any sense to me. And then I'd watch the TV preachers on Sunday, and I'd be like, these people should be in friggin' jail for ripping people.
Right.
How do people give them money? How do they not see? See, what I'm saying is the same things that people say about me for being involved with David. It's really interesting if you listen to it. But I didn't understand how anyone would write checks to some of these guys on Sunday because they were so obviously full of it.
Right.
And then so I meet David. And over the course of time, he's showing me some scriptures. Interesting. Steve Schneider was showing me some scriptures. On the back of the card is the on the back of the card that he handed me, right? Had all this religious scripture and that was all about the kingdom to be set up.
Right.
So they would go through Isaiah, Ezekiel, Nahum, Revelation, and they would show chapters upon chapters that harmonize with each other. So it's like, oh, Isaiah is talking about the kingdom be set up, and Mount Zion's going to be raised above all other mountains, and then they're going to dwell in fire. And then you go to another one, and there's another prophet talking about the kingdom to be set up on the earth, on Mount Zion. That's very specific. And I'm like, that's very interesting. He's putting this together. And then he had we were talking about the Seventh-day Adventism and this woman who was his predecessor, Lois Roden. Then Lois talking about the Holy Spirit feminine. And so then David shows me Proverbs 8 and 9. And it's a female voice speaking to mankind. And she's saying that I was with God when he created everything. It starts off something I'm going to paraphrase. I am wisdom, and I wisdom dwell with prudence. Listen to me, old men, and have salvation. Forsake my rulings, and there's nothing but death there. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But the point is in Proverbs 8 and 9, as she's going down, it's a female speaking to men. And the female says, when he created the heaven and the earth, I was by his side. I was there when he set forth a decree that the sea should not pass his commandment. And he made the heavens and he made the mountains. I was by his side. I was daily his delight. I rejoiced always before him. So this scripture absolutely blew me away because I could see in heaven, according to scripture, there's a family. In other words, we're made in the express image of God, according to scripture. I'm in the male image. Who's your wife? Who are the beautiful females in this world? Who are they made after? They don't look anything like me or you, thank God. They're quite beautiful creatures, and they look totally different. And they're made out after the Holy Spirit, the feminine aspect of God.
Right.
It just made sense to me, dude. Everything Dave showed me out of the scripture made perfect sense, whereas before nothing made sense out of it.
Okay. Let me devil's advocate you right here, though.
Sure.
And again, a lot of this comes from these movies, so it could just all be bullshit. And if it is, just tell me so. Because literally, I have watched. I literally spent the last 4 days in Waco. It seems like because I just watched everything I could absorb in the last 4 days, and it seems like as time moved on, David Koresh, not you, but David Koresh got more and more into, I am the new Messiah. I am the Lamb of God. I am God. You know, is any of that real? And B, if it is real, did you just accept that? Or were you like, whoa, dude, that's way more than I thought I was getting into?
Well, no, that's not how it started out. It started out that he was the seventh angel's messenger.
Okay.
And that all these other messengers had followed, had preceded
60
him.
years for this had been going on.
Yeah, at Mount Carmel. So it was like Ellen G. White was the original Seventh-day Adventist prophet, right? Okay. And then for him, there were these two other guys, I cannot remember their name, but it went to Victor Houteff, who branched off from the Seventh-day Adventist Church and then formed the Branch Davidians. Okay. And then he had a specific truth. It was always what they call progressive truth. The person in charge had to prove that they were a quote-unquote prophet. So Houteff did that, and then Ben Roden took over after Houteff died, and he was able to show the group that he was giving inspiration and being able to take on the message. And believe it or not, it's a tough group. You can't just show up and be charismatic and think that the Davidians of Mount Carmel are going to follow you. You had to know your scripture. You had to know it from Genesis to Revelation. You had to be able to skip around. It had to be coherent. These people would look up the Hebrew. If there was a word that there was a question, they would look up the Hebrew. They'd go to the Strong's Concordance. They took this very seriously, like their lives depended on it.
Sure.
So to get, I'm trying to get to your question.
No, it's okay.
So after Ben died, Lois Roden took over, was teaching the Holy Spirit feminine, which was new to a lot of people, especially Christians in America at the time. It was Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit's masculine. Jews, of course, always known that the Holy Spirit was feminine, but most other groups didn't really teach that. So that was a big deal to the people there. And then Vernon Howell comes on the scene and starts studying with Lois. And then he goes to Israel. He comes back. He claims that he had visions, and he went being from just kind of an inquisitive young idiot to now he's teaching the classes. And now he's harmonizing Genesis to Revelation. The people are stunned with the information that they're getting from him. And as he went on, it got more progressive and more progressive. It got stranger true, yes. But at the same time, you got to remember, this guy is spending 5-6 hours a day with these people giving Bible studies. Mm-hmm. And they're questioning. Steve Schneider comes in. Steve Schneider was teaching comparative religions. He questioned David about everything. He took 6 months of questioning David Koresh before finally he said, I'm going to leave my beautiful place in Hawaii. I'm going to give up my job as a professor, and I'm going to come study with this guy. So what people don't understand is people tried to vet David. Mm-hmm. Listen, it was easier for me because I wasn't a staunch religious person. So had I been raised Southern Baptist, right? And my families were serious Southern Baptists, I probably never would have joined David. Okay. Because I would have been set in my religious views and my religious ways. But I was very open. I was raised very open-mindedly. Sure. So, I'm reading these things and they're making sense and it's all coming together. And, the more I knew, the more I wanted to know.
Okay. Let me stop you right here before you go further. Was there any part of you that looked around, especially when you first get to Mount Carmel, when you first get there and everything's new and you're still trying to figure it all out yourself, I'm assuming, is there not a part of you that looks outward? You see everybody that's so committed to David. Is there not a part of you that looks out and says, Jim Jones, and just even for a second thinks it and has to evaluate it in your own head? Am I going down that path? Or is there something unique about this guy that tells me that he's not that guy?
Yeah, it wasn't a Jim Jones thing at all. Not at all. Or
I'm not saying it was. I'm saying saying when you were trying to evaluate, what told you it wasn't?
The fact that it was the entire scripture and that any question you had about any part of it, David could answer with other scripture and show you a much deeper meaning. He talked about the meaning of the Star of David. He just went, dude. I mean, when he would go into his visions, he would talk about the visions that he claimed God were giving him. And some visions would take 3 and 4 hours for him to describe in great detail. And you were just blown away, stunned with the information. I'll give you an example. Steve Schneider told me a story about being on a plane with David, and they were flying over they were going from land to ocean, and they were looking down, and David could see, you could see the plates of the earth, right?
Okay.
You could see like the land under the water when you're first leaving land.
Sure.
And he went into this thing about how God created the earth and how he spoke, and it was for Steve Schneider only. And Steve said he was so stunned with what he was hearing. His mouth was open. He couldn't believe the information. And then David said, "You'll never be able to repeat this to anyone." And I'm not telling you can't. I'm saying this is only for you, and you won't be able to do it. And when Steve told me the story, he says, "I cannot tell you the words that he used, but I've never been more convinced in my life that God was speaking to this individual than at that moment." And I just believed him. I mean, this guy isn't making this up. And I had my own personal experience with David like that.
Okay.
So it's one of those things, man. It's like, I can't explain the 7 seals. I can't explain. Dude, I open the Bible and it makes me crazy. It makes me anxious. I relive the experience. I can't do it. I can't. If I start giving a Bible study, guys, God's talking to me, okay?
Right.
You're not going to see a David Thibodeau Bible study out there. It's just not going to happen, because it all comes back. When I was during the siege, during the 51 days, I got the book open and I'm seeing the Assyrian, I'm seeing the Babylonians, I'm seeing what is happening to the people of God in the book. I'm reading it, and then I'm seeing the tanks go up and down the yard, and I can't put that strongly enough. There's no way to really describe that, but it was real. It was very true. And everything the government did solidified our faith even more.
Right. So you had a premonition, in a sense, of the tanks. Were you describing your WACO scene there? Was this a prophetic
No,
thing?
This is while it was happening.
Right. Okay.
Now, the premonition crap, I don't mean crap, I apologize.
Right.
The premonition stuff happened about a few months before they raided us, and I was on the roof. We were building that big house where we were doing roofing. Not me doing roofing, but I was up there with David, and he goes, "Tibbs, what are you going to do when 6 months down the road from now, there's tanks lining the Double E Ranch Road?" And I looked at him and I said, because I knew something, having a dad who was a history teacher and understanding the Constitution, having read all that. They're never going to bring tanks onto this property, Dave. It's never happened. Not in American. You're crazy. Never going to happen. 6 months later, I'm watching tanks run up and down the Double E Ranch Road. Wow. Helicopters are buzzing the building. See, this is going to let me expand your question, Chris, a little.
Sure, please.
As I'm learning these seals, you get to the second, third seal, you understand that this guy's going to be attacked for what he's teaching. I mean, that's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking, so he's got a bunch of kids. So he's been going to gun shows recently and buying fire. Why would they attack this guy for that? They can get him. He goes to town all the time.
Right.
And I'm thinking, this is never going to happen. And then it happens. Mm. And so, there's a part of me, it's like, I want to hold out just to see if this is going to happen. Did you ever see the Al Pacino movie, And Justice for All?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You remember the scene where he's in the helicopter with a crazy judge? And he's scared out of his pants, and all of a sudden there's this little beeping. The helicopter starts beeping. He goes, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, that's nothing. Don't worry about that." He goes, "No, why is it beeping?" He goes, "Well, that's the halfway mark."
Right.
What do you mean? Well, that tells me I have enough fuel to get back right now, but I like to get to the halfway mark and go just a little bit beyond.
Right. Yep.
She's like, "You mean we don't have enough fuel to get back?" "Yeah, well, just a little bit beyond. It's going to be fine." And of course, they turn back, and they barely make it.
Right.
So that's it. I wanted to go just a little bit beyond.
Sure.
I had to see if it was going to happen because I'm stupidly curious like that. I'm a
Right.
cat guy. What can I say? I like cats.
Do you think, and I'm going to go from the ATF side of it for a second. I have always been a believer that the reason they came at you guys so hard was 1,000% because of the embarrassment of Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
Without any, I honestly think if Randy Weaver never existed, you guys would probably still be out there today. They just wouldn't have come after you. But because they took such an embarrassing slap in the face, they thought that they were going to come in and right their wrong and say, look at what a good organization we are. Is that accurate to you?
Yeah, we have value, because there was talk in Congress about doing away with the ATF completely.
Right.
But that's what's so surprising, how they can screw up, and their commanders could screw up so completely and still be an organization. I mean, it's really, where else can you fail like that and still have a job?
The FDA.
Hollywood. Well, that's a government. That's a government institution. But you and I couldn't go to work and screw up that completely and then expect to have a job on Monday. It just wouldn't happen.
Right. No, it's really crazy that not only did they fail, but then they failed up, because then you saw so many of those guys that got promoted.
Yeah.
Which is just a travesty.
They really did. They got promoted, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's
the worst that happened was some people had to retire early.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. Gee, I get to sit home and get paid after burning 75 people to death. It's horrendous. I just, believe me, it makes me crazy. As somebody that served in the military, and literally got out of the military like months before you guys' situation happened. I was so glad that I was not, that didn't happen a year earlier, and they would have called us in, or National Guard, or anybody I knew, because it just seemed like such a bullshit thing, and all right. I know that the line is that, the line is twofold, that they draw the line with the young kids, and David was having sex with the young kids, and they draw the line with the weaponry. The young kids thing, the ATF has no business dealing with. Sorry, they don't. I don't care if he was banging 2-month-olds. The ATF has nothing to do with that, and they should stay the hell out of that. The weapons, it seems to me, and you can correct me on this, but it seems to me that everything that was being done that they would have known about anyway was kind of on the up and up. It was done through gun dealers. It was done, it wasn't like you guys were buying guns off the street. You guys were buying through legitimate organizations, no?
For a while they were.
Yeah, the gun dealer, Henry McMahon, he was raided by the ATF. And they were asking a lot of questions about, why did you sell all this stuff to David Koresh? He got on the phone with David and he said, I got the ATF. He said, Dave, the ATF's raiding me now. They're asking a lot of questions about you. What do you want me to do? And Dave says, send them on out here. I'll show them any of the yellow sheets that they have a question on. Right. And Henry McMahon went back to, I think it was Serabin. It was whoever crafted the raid. And he said, I got David Koresh on the phone. He's inviting you out to the property. And they went like this. So they didn't want to talk to David. He invited them onto the property. So again, that's it. I mean, and on the inside, I saw David do that. I saw him work with the undercover guy. I saw David extend himself on several occasions, never threatening. I mean, Robert Rodriguez wasn't afraid of David. They hung out every day for about 2 months. That's the undercover ATF guy.
Right.
And he was hanging. I'd wake up in the morning, Robert would be there talking to David. It became an everyday thing, dude.
He almost became a Branch Davidian, though, himself.
And he did an interview with the Dallas Morning News. It was very interesting. He said that he was learning a lot about the scripture, and he would go back, and his fellow agents would be like, you're not here to get converted, dude. They would shake him up and be like, do your job. You're not here to get converted. He goes, well, he's making a lot of sense. You know what I mean? For an agent, and they said, was he turning you? And he said, yes, he was turning me. I'm paraphrasing again.
Sure.
I don't remember his actual quote, but it was implied that, yes, Koresh was influencing him and he was seeing things. And that's what David wanted to do. He wanted to show him the seal, so hopefully he would tell the higher ups that he doesn't see anything illegal going on. That was his hope.
Right.
So I want to swing back to the message, just because and I'll just tell you my background. I have a degree in religious studies, so I'm aware. I'm not going to say that I'm well versed, but I'm more well versed than the average person that goes to church on Sundays. I can't fathom personally being compelled, no matter what anybody would say to me, to grab it so fully as those of you in Mount Carmel did. Was it just that he was saying truths that felt universal to you?
No.
What was it?
Not about universal. It's about what the scripture says. He was showing what the scripture says, whether you like it or not. There's some terrible stories in that book.
Right.
And he would basically just say, this is it. God said this for a reason. God did this for a reason. God said that for a reason. God gave us this commandment for a reason. What's it say? What's it mean? Let's get deeper. And that's it. I mean, you got people like Wayne Martin, who started listening to the tapes that Sheila, his wife, was listening to. And he's like, that makes a lot of sense. And this is a Harvard educated attorney. You got people like Steve Schneider, who studied and taught comparative religions. And yet there's this one kind of hicky, rednecky guy from nowhere, Texas, that could speak their language and convince these people that he was given something.
Okay.
Right? So it's hard to explain. Okay, the 7 seals are like, the first seal's interesting, but I didn't see the first seal at first. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not saying that that's the first seal. I don't know. It's about the marriage supper of the Lamb and the wedding of the Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
But now you get into the second and the third seal. I'll tell you the story. When I first met them, I spent about 6 months getting to know them. And then David invited me to Waco for the Passover. And he said, people will be coming from all over the world to learn these 7 seals. And he goes, it's going to be intense. It'll be 2 weeks of intense studies. It'll be 12-hour day studies. I mean, they go all night sometimes. It's just wherever inspiration takes me. He says, but you're going to have the understanding of the first 5 seals completely, and then you can decide if you want to be in the group or not. So I want y'all to think about that for a second.
Wow.
So I get to Mount Carmel, and all these people are coming in one by one. We went there about 2 weeks early, and we're just playing music. It was pretty relaxed. But the Henry family comes in, and this, these are, a family of 5 or 6 Black individuals from England who were studying at seminary school. And they all told me the same story. They learned more from David in 1 or 2 days of study than their 2 or 3 years paying thousands of dollars at the seminary school. And they decided to leave their country and leave their school and come and learn from David. They told me that. Winston Blake told me that. Livingston Fagan told me that. Malcolm Stone told me that. Every person that kept coming in, I would question and talk to, they all had the same story. They learned more from this guy in 1 or 2 sessions than their years of studying scripture. Over and over and over, I heard the same story. So I'm like, all right, this will be interesting. So then he's get that first study, and he gets on stage and he says, this is the Bible. It's 2 pieces of cow leather with a bunch of pages in between, and people spend their lives trying to figure this out. He goes, I see it. He puts it up to his head. He goes, I see it panoramically from Genesis to Revelation as if it's happening before me right now. And I went, sure you do. I mean, right. That skeptical Dave, I'm the doubting Thomas of the group for sure. In my head, that's what I'm thinking. And so then he starts giving the study. He goes to the first seal. A day later, the second seal. There's 12-hour days, like I said. By the next day, I started to truly believe that he saw the scripture like that, panoramically in pictures, and that he saw it very differently than any other living human being. I just became convinced of it by the way he described it.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. And from every word that everybody's ever said, even if you didn't fully buy in, the charisma of the guy would lead you in. Is that true too?
No, it's not about charisma. I've had lead singers that had more charisma than David Koresh, my friend.
Okay.
I mean, I played in bands my whole life, and I've had some very charming, charismatic lead singers that could get out there and stun an audience, right? David was not that to me. It's just the fact that he had such an understanding of Scripture. It appeared it was a gift. It appeared like he was inspired to teach it.
Okay.
Now, Chris, don't get me wrong. I don't claim to be a Branch Davidian. My mind is open to all things. I study Buddhism. I don't want you all to think that I'm some kind of, brainwashed religious idiot.
No. I don't think
Not
that
idiot.
at all.
Idiot's the wrong word. But no, my point is, like, to this day, I can't get over the fact that I believe he saw the Scripture that way. It's just it was very personal, but it's very powerful, and I'm not the only one that saw it that way.
Sure. So let me ask this question, which will be the hard question: do you wish you'd never met him?
See, everyone hates my answer. My answer was I was fated to have that experience.
Okay.
There's no doubt in my mind. And even if that is to help one or two people out there that hear my story, and let me put it this way, I don't wish my experience on my worst enemy.
Sure.
But I wouldn't give it up for all the money in the world either. And I'm broke as shit. But I seriously wouldn't give I was meant to go through that. It's for me. And I have people that contact me that are on the verge of suicide. They don't want to go on. And they say, I saw your story and I figured if you can go through that, I can take it another day. And then I call that person. I have several people I keep in contact with me because I believe that, hopefully not naively, that I can help them. But if nothing else, if they can look at my experience and I can be like, you can do it, my friend, you can do it. Give it a few more days. Give it another year. Life can change. And that is invaluable to me. It's just invaluable, man. I mean, it's a true blessing.
It is. It's weird. We talked about it with Andrew before you came on about my own personal thing going through the burn accident. And, I went through it, like for real went through it, but 14 months of rehab, relearning to walk and move my hands and, grafts and surgeries and blah, 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 blah.
Did you hate God?
There's a point when I did. I won't I'll text you later and I'll get your address and I'll send you my book that I wrote about my burn accident.
I love that.
And there's a chapter right in it about God. And I'll tell you, there was so many people that came to the hospital to visit me when I came out the coma, and they were like, God must have been looking out for you. And my answer was, fuck you. I don't want to hear that. That was my answer was don't tell me that, because he must have blinked. And, it took me a very long time to revert back to something that's not even in the Bible, I don't believe, but it's something everybody says, which is that whole God helps those that help themselves thing, which I know is not in the book.
Or God won't give you more than you can handle.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
really. People offer themselves left and right.
Yeah, please. Exactly. There's a lot of that too, and I just look at my own personal thing, and maybe you feel this way, maybe you don't, because you've been not. I always say this: I don't put anybody's bad thing over anybody else's bad thing. I think everybody always says to me that I have the worst story they've ever heard. I would say yours is probably a little harder than mine, because mine was, mine was all based on myself and.
Well, yeah, extreme physical pain, my friend.
Well, true.
That's not to be scoffed at.
It's not, but at the same time, getting over it was all in my own head. I don't have to turn on the TV.
I'm still there.
Yeah, well, I don't have to turn on the TV and see major networks turning the biggest tragedy of my life into entertainment that people are reviewing on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't have to do that. The only time I have to deal with my accident is if I choose to. And I wouldn't wish what you're going through with every time you turn around, there's another documentary, and here's Michael Shannon starring in the sequel to the first burning down of the building. And, that's got to suck.
Yeah. Listen, it's before it is okay. I don't want to say, I hate the word processing, but I've been doing a ton of trauma therapy reading. I'm reading books that PhDs are reading and shit like that to really, try to work all this out, right? And before, when I saw the infrared video on Regular Rules of Engagement, and then I gave a talk. I had been giving talks for Survivalist Expos, the only people that have me. And I was giving a talk and I was showing the infrared video. They gave me an advanced copy so I could show it to audiences. And I started yelling, like, they're killing them. They're shooting them. Do you see it? I was losing it on stage.
Right.
I was not in control. And so I'm signing books at the end of that. They said, oh, some guy said, very powerful presentation, but you're very angry. And when he said that, I realized that I was not in control of myself on the stage in front of 500 people.
Sure.
And I said, I can't do this anymore. And that's the day I walked away. And I spent the next 10 years. I moved back to Maine. I started playing in bands again. Well, I moved to LA, then back to Maine. I started making money playing music, which was a fucking novelty to me. I didn't even think that was possible. Covers, and, doing some originals and cover. But the point is, I got into that world. I went back to rock, and I just, if I was angry, I'd beat the drums so freaking hard. People be like, you're amazing. Like, I've never seen anyone hit the drums like that. It's like, yeah, I know. It's like, it's like, it's fucking demons coming out, man. I'd work it out every night on stage, and it was great. And I felt great. And then years would go by, and I'd turn the TV on. There's the burning building, and I'd be like, oh, that happened. Oh, wow, that really happened. So there's a scripture that said, when we stand for judgment, right, when we wake up after dying, life will be as if it was a dream, and you will look at it like through a glass darkly. And that's a really interesting scripture to me, because that's what my life became. Like, it was a dream. And then I'd see the burning building on TV and be like, oh my God, that really happened. And then I saw The Matrix in the theater, and The Matrix flipped me out like no other movie has ever fucking flipped me out.
Okay.
Sorry to swear.
No, swear. It's fine.
Okay. Because it was like, I lived The Matrix. I understood The Matrix on such a deep level. Society, we are so lied to. We just, this whole world is a slaughterhouse. And people don't like to see it. We have our families. We're trying to show our kids Disney movies, and life's going to be great. And you have to do that, absolutely. But the reality is so friggin' dark. And, you grow up believing in the Constitution in America, and you say the Pledge of Allegiance, and that you realize it's all bullshit. That it's just like, they don't care about you. They will kill you if you question them too much. And then you're like, oh, it's a fantasy. It's just, there's nothing real. And then you're like, so where are you, God? When are you going to set your kingdom? When are you going to let every single religious group has waited for the promises of Scripture? I think about the Jews in 70 AD. They're sitting in Masada. They've just rebelled against Rome. Romans have come in and sacked Jerusalem, destroyed the Second Temple period. Masada is a desert fortress that Herod built. The Jews are sitting on top of Masada, waiting for the Romans to build a ramp up to kill them. It takes the Romans 3 years. And the Jews kill themselves, which you don't do in Judaism, rather than stand and let the Romans desecrate them. It's a phenomenal, true story. But, just think about it for a second. They thought any minute God was going to come and set the kingdom up and destroy the Romans. In the days of Christ, the apostles, the time, what did Jesus say? The time is at hand. This is it. It's going to happen now. Every group, including the Christians, and including, they weren't called the Christians, then they were called the Way, by the way. Interesting. But I think of the Jews of Masada especially. They're putting their money where their mouth is, right? They're literally standing waiting for the Romans to build this ramp, and they finish it,
right? And
they kill themselves instead of stay. It's an amazing story, but the truth is, every group has waited for these things to happen, and they haven't. They never have. Christianity is one of the biggest failures in all of mankind.
Yeah, sold a lot of books.
Yeah. And and I'm saying that from someone filled with, I have faith. Sure. I know there's something there. I know there's a power there. I just think we've been so completely lied to that we wouldn't know the truth if it slapped us in the face.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's kind of, that's kind of what you and I were talking about, on the phone last week.
Yeah.
Was that whole, it's amazing to me, especially now that I've educated myself a lot, and now talking to you, obviously, and finding out, talking to you and finding out from somebody that was there what was going on versus what was spewed at me in 1993.
Right.
It's unfathomably different. And the fact that but the story is not the unfathomable part. What is the unfathomable part is that it's so obvious and everybody just eats it up anyway. It's a shit sandwich that everybody happily asks for seconds of. And it's horrible. I don't care what your belief is on David Koresh personally, not you, but anybody. What I do care about is that you can watch any of the old news footage and not just see the glaring bullshit that was being fed. Everything. It was like, well, the story's not big enough with the guns. Well, now it must be underage girls. Well, the story's not big enough with them not coming out, with the Davidians not coming out.
Narrative changing. And
yeah, well, then we're going to have to go in and get it. Well, they didn't come out with that, so let's make it bigger. Let's run over the cars and let's torture. But we're not going to present it as torture. We're going to present it as sleep deprivation or whatever horseshit. When it's torture, that's what they were doing. And then when that didn't work, well, we had to go in, but we didn't do anything that lit fires. It was non-flammable gases. If you can watch that and believe that in today's world, where it has been proven over and over and over and over again that this government will lie to you, then you're too stupid to get it, and you deserve what you get.
I refuse to watch any
That's
historical Netflix stuff anyway, and I did not watch this purposely. Didn't watch it. I'm so glad I find out from David that it is a piece of shit. The Netflix
Go ahead,
thing.
David.
There's some good things about the Netflix thing. Don't get me wrong, but I have respect for the filmmaker. I love his past works. That's why I'm so disappointed that there's so much information he left out. It's stunning to me. It's absolutely mind-blowingly stunning. The amount of things that he left out. That's really the problem that I have.
Well, you know who controls Netflix
Right.
Netflix is a narrative organization just like any other Hollywood organization.
Well, they all do it. It's the system protecting itself no matter what. I mean, in the Netflix documentary, the FBI guy, one of the FBI guys says David Thibodeau was a liar.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about
And
that.
then
He called you a fucking liar to quote him
nice.
exactly.
And they didn't give me the opportunity to retort.
Right.
So, I mean, I feel like I shouldn't have to say it, but I'll say it.
Yeah.
I wrote my book out of frustration because of the way everything had been portrayed.
Sure.
So, if you're stupid enough to be spoon-fed what the government wants, and you're going to look at someone telling you the truth and call them a liar and think they're lying, then you kind of deserve what you get.
Yeah.
You're a true fucking sheeple.
Yeah. Agree.
I mean, these people, I can't count. I don't have a number for how many times they lied to you, the American public, during the 51-day siege. It's a phenomenal number.
Mm-hmm.
We just had the 30th memorial of Waco down in Texas. We did a press conference with all of the scholars. Tabor couldn't make it. Phil Arnold was there. Kathy Wessinger was there. And Stuart Wright, who teaches, he's a professor from Beaumont.
Okay.
And Stuart, you should really look up his stuff. It's all on my website, WACOsurvivors.com, by the way.
Okay.
I have all of Stuart Wright under literature, all of Stuart Wright's writings. And he did all these critical analysis of the actions of the FBI at Waco and ATF. And he did one. He said, it's too bad that there isn't a book that the FBI can follow if they want to get a bunch of people out of a building in a situation like this. It turns out they did have a book. It's a rule book.
Ugh,
And he went
wow.
through it bit by bit, chapter by chapter. And he found out that the FBI violated, I think the number is 11. It could be 16, but I'm going to go conservative. 11 of their own principles. In other words, in their rule book, they came up to 11 rules, and instead of doing what the rule book said, they did the exact opposite.
Wow.
So 11. So here are the people that are telling you that we want to get the children out. We want to save everyone. We want everyone to just come out.
Mm-hmm.
And yet behind the scenes, oh, if we do this, if we set up speaker systems, then they're not going to want to come out. So we shouldn't set up speaker systems. Set up the speaker systems.
Yeah, exactly.
11 fucking times they did this. 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or 16. I can't remember the number. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Look, if it's one, it's too many.
The point, yeah, and the point is they're not acting in good faith to get people out. They want, listen, nobody on the face of the earth had more to gain by that building burning than the FBI and the ATF.
Yeah.
The evidence showed the ATF came in and people were shooting from the helicopters. They all deny it.
Yeah, they all deny that.
They all
one.
deny it.
Mhm.
It's that they were shooting from the helicopters.
Right.
Kevin Whitecliff saw them shooting. I saw him after the ceasefire, and he was shaking and he was yelling. The helicopters came in firing, Dave. I saw him. I couldn't believe it. And you know, that's not a guy that's lying to you, dude.
Yeah, and what was the other girl's name? That Ruth Rankle?
Ruth Riddle.
Riddle. Yeah, she said it too, didn't she? She said that she saw him shooting.
Yeah. So did Catherine Madison, said that they were close. Victoria Hollingsworth said in her depositions that she saw the helicopters right by her window. So, and I want to just say the ATF have all claimed that the helicopters didn't get more than they were about a football field away, 100 yards away from the building. They didn't get any closer than 100 yards. That's not true.
Right. Well, and look, the lies are phenomenal that I perceive as lies. Like, you know, there's, and again, like I said, I don't remember which is which, but I watched a zillion of these documentaries. And there's a clip in one of them where David Koresh is on the phone with somebody, with one of the negotiators. And it was when the helicopters first came in, and the guy said nobody was firing from the helicopters, and Koresh is like, "You're a liar! You're a liar! They were firing." He goes, "Well, what we meant, what we said was there was no mounted guns on the," and it's like, well, no, that isn't what was said at all. It just wasn't said that way. It was said, "We're not firing." And then when David questioned it, then it was, well, there's no mounted guns, but they're shooting out the side. It's like, what kind of horse shit are you trying to spin here?
Hey, gentlemen, can you guys give me just a minute?
Sure.
I have to be 1 minute.
All right, go ahead. All right, we'll take a break. All right, hold on 1 second, Eric. I'm going to play a commercial.
Yeah, do it up.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, and we are back right here on Chris Akin Presents.
Glad we took a break. My butt was starting to hurt.
David will be back on in a second, and we will wrap this up because, Lord knows, as you can tell, you got me going now. And I'm like, I could go till 2 a.m. doing this because I'm fascinated.
We haven't even cracked open the 7 seals.
No, not really. I mean, we talked about it sort of, kind of, but.
Hope you're not busy for the next 12 hours.
Exactly. No, this is fascinating stuff. All right, here's David. David is back. All good, man. well, dude, let's talk about like we'll kind of wrap this up because we can go on forever. But you're obviously welcome to come on again and talk more about this.
Cool. This has been one of the better ones.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about you getting out of the building because like I said, I watched 1 million documentaries. I'm still unclear what happened. Was it just you decided enough was enough? Was it fear? Was it instinct? What was it that had you jumping out the window and getting the hell out?
The fear for me was what was going to happen if I left the building. A bunch of us in the back thought that we were going to be shot. Yeah, this is interesting. We should talk about this for a second because nobody ever gets this right. But here's what happened.
Okay.
So I'm in the chapel area, and a couple hours earlier, I had witnessed the tanks come through the front door, the 2 front doors, and move. Then we had a piano against the doors. They moved them back to where I was. I had to jump out of the way and jump back.
Okay.
To avoid the tanks running over me. And so I got into the middle of the room. A couple hours go by. We're just there all day. And then someone yells from the upstairs. I hear, "There's a fire up here." And it was from the 2nd story.
Okay.
And so at that point, I'm like, are the kids in the underground bus? I didn't know. So I knew from earlier that when the tanks had come through, they destroyed everything. The hallway was destroyed, that 1st story hallway, because the tanks were coming in. And if you see the footage of the building, you see these huge holes. The tanks went all the way in. They went right in front of that tower, that big, huge tower in the middle. The base for that was the concrete structure. It turns out that's where all the kids were placed under wet blankets. But the tank went, and this is testimony at the trials, the tank driver went through Paul Fatta's room all the way to the concrete structure, all the way to the middle of the building, and fired a massive amount of CS gas into the concrete structure where the kids were. So many of them died. They choked to death. They died these horrible deaths from the CS gas.
Right.
On top of that, we get the video of people being, fully automatic weapons fire at the back. So then the tank comes back out, right? That destroyed the hallway. There was no getting down that hallway. All it was debris everywhere. Okay. The very front, there was a staircase that led up to the 2nd story. That was destroyed. So there was no way to get to the cafeteria area.
Okay.
Except for if you go behind the chapel. So here's the chapel, and behind that on the other side is the gymnasium. The gymnasium has been completely destroyed and leveled. You could hear the scraping and the building shaking from the tank going through the gymnasium and raising it to the ground, just destroying it.
Okay.
So between those 2 places, there was a hallway, right? And then we had some sound equipment back there. And in that hallway, there was another stairwell that led up to the 2nd story where David Koresh's office and his room were. I went up there. I went into the office and then into David Koresh's room. And then over, okay, so here's the chapel area roof. And over the roof, there was a walkway, right? It was like what do they call it? A dog walk.
Okay.
And so I walked to where the 2nd story hallway was. There was a blanket over the hallway. I removed the blanket and I was going to step into the 2nd story hallway, but there was so much smoke. I had to back up because the smoke came in at me. I had to back up. I had to let it dissipate. And then as I was moving back in toward the hallway, a wall of flame shot down from the left to the right in front of me. So at this point, I'm facing where the surveillance house is, right? I'm facing that part. And so this came from the right side of the building down the hallway in front of me. And it was a wall of flame. There was no getting into that hallway. It was done. Hallway was done. So I knew at that point I couldn't get to the kids. There was no way to get to the cafeteria. We were cut off.
Sure.
I went back down the way I came. By the time I got downstairs, the smoke was everywhere. There was a hole in a window, and the tank had come through, and they would spray CS gas, and they made a hole for us to get out of. Well, they made the hole to put CS gas in there, but they said the holes were to get us out. Nobody wanted to exit that hole. We all thought we were going to be shot. Now, you have to remember, during the siege, what they don't tell you, on several occasions, people exited the building, and the agents would throw flashbang grenades at them. So they would run back into the building. That happened to Steve Schneider twice.
Jeez.
So they're purposely keeping us in the building. And then they also said that we had shot against the CEVs, that we had shot at the tanks. We didn't shoot the entire morning. Myself, Derek Lovelock, Clive Doyle, we have all talked about this, and nobody heard shooting the entire morning. So they're saying that we have shot 800 to 200 times against the CEVs, or their tanks, but none of us heard any shots. So nobody did that. They were saying that to prepare
to
people
justify
for the worst. Exactly. So that was another one of their lies. So what happened was the smoke started to come in. Next to me, I was leaning against the wall. This way, or that way, is the window.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, we go out there, we're going to get shot. But I look over, and Wade Martin's to my left, and his son's next to him. And all of a sudden, I don't see his son anymore. And Wayne is leaning against the wall. He takes his mask off, and he slides down the wall to where he's squatting on the back of his legs. And as he does that, I see him slide down the wall, and then the smoke just engulfs him. Ugh. And at this point, I'm thoroughly in shock. I look out. I see Derek Lovelock and Jamie Casillo go out of the hole, and I follow behind them. And I'm thinking, well, actually, before I did that, the wall caught fire, and I could hear my hair singeing. And that's when, in a split second, I said, it's better to be shot than to burn to death. So I followed them out. I wasn't shot. I saw that I went from this dark to light, and I'm looking at the Red Cross sign, and the speaker systems are saying, go to the Red Cross sign. I turned around to see Clive Doyle, and I didn't think anyone could make it out after me.
Okay.
I turn around, I see Clive Doyle come out. He's got a jacket on. He's patting his arms out, and he had third-degree burns on his arms. Yeah.
Sure.
And so, we walk to that Red Cross sign. I get about 50 yards up. I turn around, and I see the building completely engulfed. And I'm looking at it completely engulfed. And that's when the explosion happened, which was a propane tank that went psh. And you can tell the explosion is different than the rest of the fire, because the rest of the fire is black. It's like roofing tile, and it's CS gas burning off. When CS gas, it's a chemical fire because they put so much CS gas in there.
Sure.
When CS gas burns off, it causes cyanide. It creates cyanide. Many of the children had cyanide poisoning from the CS gas burning. So if you watch the video I'm talking about, you see that big explosion, you'll notice that's all red and dissipates quickly. That's the difference. That's propane.
Right.
And the rest of the fire is really dark. But I tell you that because I could feel the heat from that explosion about halfway up, which is pretty far. That's how amazing and hot it was. Crazy.
Real quick, are you saying that the propane was already in the building? Like you guys had the propane? Or are you saying that they put it in the building?
No, the propane tank was next to the tower.
Okay.
It was outside. Okay. It was just a propane igniting.
Okay.
Right, but it's part of the facility. It was part of the
heat. Correct. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Dude, I cannot even imagine looking back and just watching your friends and family burn and nothing you can do. That's just beyond brutal, man. That's I'm sure that's what haunts you to this day, or not, right?
Well, Chris, it's why I'm so pleasant and pleasing to be around all the time. It's why I'm single.
Wow, man. This thing has been an ordeal, man.
Yeah,
well,
man.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I so much appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely.
In a few months, and we could talk about this, or we could talk about music, or
Sure.
whenever Eric's in your town, we'll get you out to a show to go see Stephen Piercy.
That'd be fun.
Well,
I'd love that, dude. That'd be great, man.
Yeah,
sure.
if you like the Rat music.
I was thinking when they had was it Andrew Hagar?
Yeah.
Andrew? He should be invited to play with Wolfie. Why not? I mean,
that's what I was thinking. Their music isn't that far off either.
Get the kids of all these famous musicians to form a band. That would be pretty cool. I would dig that.
Well, even if they just toured and came out at the end and did, I don't know, the best of both worlds or something.
Yeah.
Wow, people would love that.
That'd be fun as hell, man.
Yeah, it would put both of them into even a much bigger place than they are. But
yeah.
Well, David, tell people where we should send them to keep up with you, or to buy your book, or to, just learn more about your experience, etc.
Well, I have a ton of free information on the website. It's wacosurvivors.com.
Okay.
So survivors plural, Waco survivors. And I got pictures. There's all kinds of video. I'm not sure if the 30th Memorial is on there yet, but it will be. We're gonna put on very quickly if it's not already.
Okay.
I have to check it. But a ton of information. I have all the the DVDs that I'm talking about that obviously we approve of. My book. Anyone who buys my book from the website, I sign it for them too.
Great.
And there's shirts and things like that. But mostly I want it to be like we have all of the transcripts of the FBI negotiations. I think we have the first 20 days of negotiations on audio.
Okay.
And I have audio of David preaching and teaching his scriptures back in the 80s.
Wow.
So it's early studies. And listen, I don't put that on. I'm not trying to proselytize anyone. I'm not trying to convert anyone.
Sure.
I'm a witness. My job, I'm a musician, a witness. My job is not to convert people. I put that on there for history's sake. And I put that on there because it's real, it's true. And I want people to know that it wasn't a bunch of idiots following a charismatic guy. That Koresh actually had a real doctrine. It was real deep. If it's something you're interested, I think you'll find it fascinating.
Okay.
But again, I'm not asking for money. I don't want your soul. I'm not starting a religious group. Anything I put up is for historical preservation. I think it's important.
Oh, thank you.
Right on.
Thank
well,
you guys.
this has been fascinating. David Thibodeau, the book is out there, Survivor. Go get it. Go to the website, wacosurvivors.com, and do your own research. That's what I'll tell everybody. Don't believe the bullshit that's out there. Do your own research. Just one more real quick question, and this is just a approve or disapprove.
Just when I thought I was getting out,
exactly.
Back in.
Fast,
I just have more and more questions. WACO and WACO Aftermath, approve or disapprove?
Okay. Listen, those guys have I have nothing but praise for the producers, the Dowdle brothers. They humanize the people. That's the best I ever could have hoped for, dude. And I am I am so happy that they did that. There are millions of people who knows who Serenity is, Michelle's daughter, and know some of the individuals that were there because of those shows.
Okay.
That said, the book is far more accurate. And what they had to do in the first one is you got 130 people in the building, right? You can't have 130 characters in a show like that. It'll confuse everyone.
Sure.
So they took my character and they made me do things that Greg Summers did and other people. So they mixed characters together into one, right? So the important points are covered very well and are historically accurate. The chronology isn't.
Okay.
If you want to know the real truth, you got to read the books, and not just mine. Clive Doyle's book. I would read Sheila Martin's book. They're all very important, but the book is going to be more accurate than the series.
Okay.
The second series I just watched, I liked it quite a bit. I liked what it was saying about what happened after. Of course, Oklahoma City, everyone tried to blame us for. It's
right.
This happened because your government was out of control and you had someone not so stable go and take revenge. And I say this every chance I can, Chris. No, none of the survivors period, not even the most religious radical ones, want anything bad or violent to happen against innocent people. That is not what any of us have ever been about. What Timothy McVeigh did horrified every one of us. We were stunned into horror and shock, and the fact that kids died. You know, we were mourning our own children's death that day, and then the press is there showing us things. So what do you think of this? Well, I think it's horrible. What do you mean? And then I realized what they were doing. They were trying to make a link. And I'm like, and they've done that ever since. David Koresh was not political. And I'll tell this is important too.
Sure.
There's the right wing, you got the left wing. They're both crazy, screaming and yelling. It's like they want a fucking civil war. And everyone's like, well, you know, Trump goes and does his speech in Waco during 30th memorial of the 51-day memorial period. Wow. And it's like, people are like, what do you think of that? I go, well, I'll tell you what I think of that. Nothing. Because Koresh and the Davidians were not political.
Right.
They were 100% scriptural. Whether you like that or not, or think that's sane or not, it's a truth. And so to make it political, that's your own doing. That's the media's doing. That's other people trying to manipulate it to make us look bad, and to fulfill their worldview. That's their worldview. That's what they're trying to do there.
Right on.
So I just say Koresh wasn't. I never once heard him even talk about a president that he was going to choose. Never. In the year that I knew him, he never mentioned politics. It was all scriptural, 100%.
Right on. Well, one more time, everybody should do their own research, not believe the TV. Don't believe the idiot box. You know, and you can do some of that research certainly over at wacosurvivors.com. David, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And everybody else, thanks for watching tonight, because, wow, we went way over, but that's okay. So that is going to do it for this episode of Chris Akin Presents. So until next week, everybody, we will see you all. As soon as I get to the right page, we'll see y'all later. Peace, everybody.